Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first virtual Towson University Black Comic Book Mini Fest. Um, my name is Dr. Don Worgs. I'm the Director of African and African American Studies at Towson University. And we are excited to have you all join us for this event. We've been planning it for a while. This is actually our fourth Black Comic Book Festival, but the first time, of course, doing it remotely and virtually. But we think this will be fun. Without further ado, I wanted to just welcome you all. I'm going to turn it over to the woman who's been organizing much of this on behalf of Towson University, Kirsten Whiting, and she will then turn it over to our first session moderator, Kirsten.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I want to thank everyone for coming out today, for dedicating some of your time to learning more about comic books. We have a great lineup ahead of us. There goes my video. We will have a few panels teaching you about the different workings of comic books, how to create costume characters, all of that. So I hope you all are ready and you are in store for a treat. Without further ado, I will hand it over to our first panelist, Ms. Christine.
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, great. All right, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm your favorite neighborhood superhero, Chrissy X, and you caught me just as I was just about to go out and patrol the neighborhood to help keep it safe. I think it's everyone's duty to help keep the neighborhood safe, but I like to use my special superpowers to do that. As I was about to leave out, I think I realized I don't know where my mask is, and I have to keep my identity a secret so that me and my family can be safe from any villains. So, since Superheroes Are Us happens to be closed on the weekends, I'm going to have to figure something out on my own. So I decided I'm going to make my own mask, and hopefully you guys can join me in case you can activate your superhero powers and you need to go out and patrol the neighborhood too and keep your identity safe as well. So all you're going to need today just to have your own superhero mask is a piece of paper and a pencil so that we can create a mask template. And then whenever you have time, or if you can today, you can complete your mask and we can all go out and be superheroes together. So a plain sheet of paper like this is all you need to get started, and a pencil. So to get started, all we have to do, see what I'm doing. All you have to do is fold your paper in half. Like so. Just fold your paper in half. And this is going to be the midline of your mask, so that when you open it up, you'll have two symmetrical sides. Okay? Now, it's really easy to create a mask, and you can download a template from Google at any time, but you can also create your own just by figuring out what the dimensions are for your own face, if you have the time and the skill and the patience. So I have this handy dandy ruler right here, which I can use to measure from the middle of my nose to the beginning of my eye in the corner here, all the way to the outer corner of my eye, so that when I measure on the paper, I can make the proper markings so I can begin an outline for my mask. So hopefully you guys can do that along with me. Okay, so I already have it marked off. So I'm going on my ruler. So I'm going to make some markings on my paper for where my eyes are. So I know what I'm kind of where I'm going with this. And you can really make any design that you want to, considering all the different kinds of hero masks that there are. So I'm gonna do just a simple design that I think will, suit what I'm looking for. And the good thing about this is that even if you mess up, it's paper, so you can kind of, erase, recut, reshape as you need to. I don't know if my pencil is showing up on here. Okay, but I'm just gonna do a simple, hopefully, I don't know if the lines are showing up, but once I cut it out, you'll be able to see. Now, when it comes to doing the eyes, when you mark off your dots for the shape of your eyes, all you want to do is between the dots, create an egg shape, an oval shape kind of pattern that kind of looks like maybe a diamond rounded off. I really can't tell if you can. Let me do it with something darker just to be sure. You can see where I'm at with this. You don't have to be a perfect artist. I am no perfect artist. I'm no Akinche Brown, but I can, just do simple things. Okay, here we go. Right. So far we have like the outline for the top of the mask and the eye shape. So now I'm going to go ahead and do bottom. Remember, like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can kind of adjust as you want to. But when we're done, we'll be able to go out and fight crime together. Okay, let's see. All right, so I'm just darkening up my outline so I can make sure you can see what we're doing. And remember, like I said, you don't have to draw this freehand. You totally can just download and print a template, but it's fun to kind of create your own thing and make it your own. Okay, so now we have half of the mask drawn out. And all we have to do is just cut. And hopefully it looks like what we want it to look like. Okay, so maybe I didn't mention we needed scissors when I said everything that you need. So of course you need scissors to cut out any template. Anything that you need to make a mask is typically household items that you can find, or simply craft items that you can get from a craft store or like a store like Walmart. Just for something simple. And the materials that you can use to make the mask are either duct tape, if you want to keep it very simplistic, felt sheets, which are easy to find, or craft foam sheets, which are also easy to find. Now, when it comes to cutting out the eye pieces, you kind of want to put your scissors through the middle of the eye here and then be able to cut around. If you do have one of those X-Acto knives, I think you can use that, but I don't know if that's the best for paper. So I'm cutting around the outside, the outline rather, of the eye. Hopefully it's big enough. We will see when I fit the template to my face. All right, let's see how I did. Ooh, I think it looks pretty cool. I definitely like it a lot. So now that I have my mask template done, all that I have to do now is cut out mask using this craft foam. Okay, so I just happen to have some craft foam laying around in my emergency situation where I lost my mask. I'm going to use this sheet to cut out this shape.
A message has been received.
So this is craft foam, like I said. I have black because it's a simple color and it's kind of usable in a universal way. But you can pretty much use, like I said, duct tape to create a mask if you need to on, you know, kind of like a immediate need basis, or even felt. I like to use craft foam because of the way you can kind of mold it a bit, which we'll get to next. All right, so as you can see, I have the mask template on the craft foam. We'll go ahead and cut this out. Well, I'm going to go ahead and trace. I'm tracing this outline here, and craft foam kind of has, it's kind of soft, so it indents, so it's really easy to do the outlines and then to cut. Okay, so we've got one side carved out so far, outline done so far, doing the inside of the eyes. Now this is the part that I do want to be as perfect as I can be on, since this is going to ultimately be my mask. And I have to be careful. I can't let anyone recognize me. So yeah, we're almost done. Hopefully you can see what's going on. If not, I definitely am going to hold it up so you can kind of see the outline that I'm doing. It's actually a pretty cute mask. I think I might like it more than the one I had. Okay. I don't know if you can see the outline here. I think you can. So the outline is drawn on the foam. Now it's already black, so I don't necessarily have to paint it. But if I had the time, I definitely would, if you have the time as well, I definitely would recommend painting your mask different colors. I happen to favor black. Black is in my costume anyway, but it could be any color you want it to be, or multicolored. So we're just cutting out the foam, which is really good as a mask anyway because it's really soft. So it feels kind of good on your face. Okay. We're almost done cutting. I don't know if you can tell I'm right-handed, but I have to do this from the right side. All right, and we almost have it all the way cut out. I'm really excited about this. I can't wait to see how it turns out. Okay, so we have almost everything cut out. This is the entire outline of our mask, and now I just have to cut out the eye pieces. And remember I said it's good to kind of pierce the middle and then cut outward to have like a clean cut. Okay, I'm trying to be really careful on this part. You know, the eyes are what people focus on. All right, and we're almost done. Okay, looks like a good shape to me. Now for the next eye. Okay. And we are almost done. Yes, okay. I have 2 eye parts cut out. Let me just want to clip this a little bit more. Just to be sure that it is perfect. Because it has to be perfect, right? Okay. So here is the completely cut out mask. I definitely do think it looks pretty good. And here we go. So this is the mask. Yeah, so this is the mask on me. So we're almost done. Now that I have it all cut out, I kind of just want to contour it a little bit to my face like a mask would be. And I have 2 things that I can use for that. A hair dryer, or you can definitely use the stove, or you can use, I think this is called a candle lighter. So all we need is just to heat it up, because then it becomes malleable, like more formable, moldable, and I can kind of mold it to my face. Now, for our younger people who may be watching, definitely need adult supervision or help with this step. I would like to show you kind of how it works with the hair dryer first, so you can see kind of how effective it is if you're trying this at home. It's going to be a little bit loud. It only needs to heat up for like maybe a minute or 2 before you can kind of mold it to your face. So let's see how it goes.
Christy, you're muted right now. Please unmute.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. It does take a little bit longer to heat up the craft foam with the hair dryer, so I tend to not really like to use that method. It is a lot faster to heat it up using the candle lighter. I don't feel quite confident about the mold that I have yet, but as you see, it does take the shape. So it is something you can use, you know, for safety's sake, simplicity's sake. It just does take a little bit longer, but you do see that it does have a shape to it. So I do want to heat it up just a little bit, and I do have to be careful with the candle lighter. It just heats up the foam, like I said, just to make it a little bit more moldable. And then I just want to form it to my own face, my nose. So I feel like it just fits me a little bit better. You do have to be careful doing this, because if you heat it up and then you put it to your face too quickly, which I have done before, you can kind of burn yourself a little bit. Nothing too major, but you do want to be careful. I'm trying not to burn myself here. I don't know if you can see. So I just have the flame a little close, and you can kind of tell when it's ready because it kind of starts bending. Okay. Okay. All right. I feel good about this. So I think I'm ready to put on a little bit of the finishing touches. If you do want to kind of smooth out the craft foam, I think you can kind of heat it up a bit to like smooth it, like the eye parts, if you need to, or trim anything that you think is in the way. Now, we did talk about decorating. If you're going to decorate, the first thing you would have to do is use a spray or adhesive that you can brush on that can become a sealant. Then after that, fabric paint would be the best paint to use because it's movable. And since you know, your craft foam can kind of move and bunch, it would be better to use a fabric paint versus acrylic paint, because acrylic paint can kind of crack after, you know, long-term usage. So it would be best to use this kind of fabric paint here. And this is like regular brush-on fabric paint here. You can also use, for decorative purposes, the 3D paint. So if you want to add some dimension to your mask, this paint can give you what you call the puffy paint effect. So you can do, you know, lines or dots or anything like that, and it will be raised. So, you know, raised from the mask. So it just gives it a more interesting dynamic if that's what you want to do. Now, if you don't have fabric paint, you can use spray paint. You would definitely have to use the adhesive first. And then after you spray your paint on, you would coat it again with your adhesive to seal it in, if you don't have anything else on hand. Okay. So yes, so I don't feel like I need particularly any decoration on my mask, and I don't think we have time for it to dry. But I typically probably would just put a little shimmer on it and leave it at that. So now we're at the stage where we can put the holes on either side, on both sides of our mask, so we can string it with either string or elastic or any type of cord that you would like to use for your mask to stay on you. I don't have elastic today, so I'm actually going to be using this cord here to tie on my mask. but really anything that will keep it on is fine. So you do for this want to fold your mask in half to put the holes in. You can just use your pencil point to get it started. And then use the tip of your scissors. So I think I would like to put it here. All right, it appears pretty good. So I don't think I need my scissors for this. Has a clear hole in it. So for stringing the cord around, measure it with a ruler if you want to, but typically just measuring it around your own face would be the best thing to do. So I'm going to thread, like, I have it connected here. I have a lot of string. So you have to connect it to the mask and then kind of string it around, see how far it needs to go. And then once you cut it, then you can put it in the other side. You can do this method with elastic or any type of string that you're going to use. It's going to be the same thing. See. All right, so I'm just tying it on here with a simple knot. Nothing fancy, just a simple knot to keep it secure. Okay, can you see that? Okay, just a simple knot to keep it secure. Tying it as tight as can be. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna snip off this little extra piece here because I don't want that in the way. You could do this two ways. You could, just cut a piece off here so that you could just have two strings and then tie it in the back. I think I'm gonna go for the method where I can just kind of pull it around like this because I have a lot of hair, and so it should be able to stay on like that. So I'm just measuring around to see where I have to cut it. All right. It looks like I'm gonna cut it about here. This is about how much string that I'm using. And I'm gonna cut it. I'm gonna, to be sure, just cut a little bit more than what I thought, just to be on the safe side. You can always make it shorter. All right, so we're just threading it through on the other side. Okay, I didn't tie anything yet. I'm just gonna check it again just to make sure I have enough space and that it will actually fit. Okay. I'm glad I checked because I don't think I do have enough space. All right, so as with all superhero endeavors, when you come across a problem, you just solve it. So I'm going to use the two strings and just tie it in the back because I think that'll be easier for everyone. So I'm just kind of matching it with what I already have. It doesn't have to be exact because you're just tying it anyway. All right, so I'm threading it through the other side again, attempt 2. And I'm gonna tie it. right, and tying it as tight as I can. I feel pretty good about it. I feel it should work out. All right, I guess now we'll see if the proof is in the pudding, as they say. Just tying it on now. Okay. I do feel like this is a suitable mask so that I can go out and do my superhero duties, even when Superheroes R Us may be closed. I can definitely just do it myself because I saved the day. Now, I do feel like my mask might look a little plain. If you feel like it might look a little plain too, then I guess I could add a little decoration to it. Let's see, I do have this nice star. I feel like I could put this nice star here just for extra flair. And you can add whatever you would want to. You could add, a shape that you cut out in the middle here. For those who want to add a cultural element, you could put like an ankh and just kind of glue it on here in the middle. But I think I'm just gonna add this star. It happens to have adhesive on it. So all I have to do is just stick it on. And then I feel like it'll be all done and I'll be ready to save the day. Let's see. So we have on our star. I'm gonna retie it. And now, don my hood, and voila. I'm Chrissy X, ready to save the day. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this mask making tutorial for all superheroes out there. Let me know if you have any questions or comments.
Thank you, Christy X. We appreciate the tutorial in how to make a mask and to get prepared for superhero activities. We're going to take, we appreciate it. We're going to take about a 3 or 4 minute break. And then we will begin our next session, which will be a panel discussion on African traditions in comics. That will go from about 12:45 to 1:45. Then that will be followed by another workshop on how to create your own comic, which will be from 2 o'clock to about 2:30. And then we will conclude with a panel discussion on the state of the Black superhero. So give us about 3 to 4 minutes to get the next panel started. And so, yeah, thank you all for participating. And we'll be back shortly.
Excuse me, Don, we do have one guest by the name of Maxwell that has his hand raised. Do you want me to have him ask his question?
Sure.
Okay, Maxwell, if you unmute yourself, but feel free to ask your question of Christy X or Dr. Warks. And
Hi.
Hello. Hello.
do you have a question, Maxwell? You have to unmute yourself, sweetheart.
I know. No, I don't have a question. I just wanted to say hi.
Oh,
Well, hello.
hi,
Thank you for
sweetie.
joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna take, as I said, about a 2 to 3 minute break, and we'll get the next panel started. Kirsten, if you can put the slideshow on while we wait, and then we'll be back shortly. Okay, we are ready to get started again. Once again, thank you all for joining us for this virtual remote Black Comic Book Festival. We're now going to turn to a really interesting discussion about African traditions and comics. So I'm going to turn it over to our panelists. So the folks who are on this panel could, unmute themselves and turn on their cameras, and I will turn it over to you guys to get things going.
Okay. Thanks a lot. And hello, everyone. I'm Maurice Waters, the president and founder of BlackSciFi.com, and I'm the moderator for this panel. And I wanted to start off our discussion with some spoken word from Philadelphia. So just give me a second. I'm going to share my screen, and then we'll kick everything off. Can everyone see my screen? Okay, good.
Ladies and gentlemen, Black Sci-Fi TV presents The Cipher.
Representation matters. When your ancestry is of a Nazi, you have more stories than the tallest building sons. Our sons that climb the wall of oppression, looking like Miles Morales, our daughters. Weather the weather with no umbrella when they are the storm. And we always had this genius, this iron heart of our own advancement to go against the machine that wished to oppress us to the point of unemployment like a John Henry. True story.
Okay, I'm going to stop. I'll come back to that in a little bit. It's too much. Sorry about that. We'll try that again. It's too much lag in time. So we'll just start off with the goal of that spoken word artist. It was Lindo Yutz from Philadelphia. And from Black Sci-Fi, we're an online news magazine and we produce a lot of film. So we asked him and a couple other poets from Philadelphia to talk about why Black Sci-Fi, why representation matters, why pulling things from in a book or in a comic book was important. So that's what that video was about. And I'll try it again later, or you can go to our website or our Facebook page and see that. Today, this panel, we're talking about, taking the African experience and putting it in paper, putting it on video, and using your creativity from your experience to, does it sell? Is it important? We have some people here that are international who have been successful, and I'm going to start off introducing each one of them, and we'll go through, understand some of their works, what they're doing, see their examples, and then we'll open up and start taking some questions. Okay, so I'd like to start with, and I apologize if I mispronounce anyone's last name. So we'll start with Bill Masuku. Is that correct? How I pronounced it?
Yes, that's correct. Okay.
He's welcome, and he's the creator of comic books like Razor Man, Welcome to Dead World, and Captain South Africa. In the urban fantasy genre, he's the author of Misfortunism, of a series called Misfortunism. His artwork has appeared in galleries around South Africa, and he has been a guest speaker at events such as the MTM London Comic Con, AnCon Cape Town, Comic Con Africa, and Harare Literature Festival. Bill is a Haruka Award-winning and Anamo Award-nominated comic book artist and writer, born in Harare, Zimbabwe in 1993. Welcome to the show, or the panel, should I say.
Thank you for having me, Maurice.
Okay, and so next I want to introduce Kenji. Kenji Imani Marshall, who is the owner of Griot Comics. He's an award-winning illustrator with 15 years plus of professional experience and a unique and versatile style that he has when you look at his artwork and some of his writing. He's the author and illustrator of Witch Doctor, Protector of the People, and Southside Nefertiti, or Nefertiti. Welcome. And our next panelist that rounds everything out is Sagwa Tabeta. Did I pronounce that right?
Correct.
Okay, excellent. While studying film and media arts in the late 90s at Temple University in Philadelphia, Sagwa was an active participant in cultural events, the African Studies Department, and community education projects. Sagwa's experience has given him the knowledge and skills to tell stories from the African continent. He's done this successfully for local audiences and international forums. The use of digital technology has enabled him to enhance and keep up with the pace and the need for content from Africa. And it cannot be overstated how big that's starting to grow and important, and we'll get into that as well. Attending such events as ECPAC exposed Sagwa to a means to tell stories of relevance to African audiences via comics. It's with this in mind that he has embraced the challenge to use new media and give the African historical and cultural experience a voice through comic books, graphic novels, animation, and games. Welcome to the show, or panel. So if I can, I'd like to start with Sagwa, since we ended with him. And if you can really talk about some of your work and show us these examples, and then we'll go to each person here, and then we'll open up in the forum.
Certainly. Thanks for hosting me in this panel. Quite excited. Like you said, I've actually done a lot of work with some of the founders of ECPAC. The projects I'm working on currently, what I'm looking to do is to push the idea of African cultural from the past and tradition, but modernizing through comic books. So one of the stories that I managed to get the rights to is a story called Shaka, Son of the Gods. Now, that's a story that was in comic book form, like in the 80s during apartheid South Africa. Now, I'm from Kenya, and the story was actually written by West Africans, Senegalese writer, who actually said, let's find a way we can connect to people worldwide and tell them about what's going on in South Africa, like during apartheid. So Shaka, Son of the Gods was the story that came out, and this was just to sensitize people. Now, over time, the publisher of Shaka, Son of the Gods, knowing I was doing film and media, asked me if I could actually modernize the story and get the story out to the general public and actually make people now understand more about Shaka, but not the story that's well known about Shaka, the military genius, the hero, but actually a story where it's adapted to myths, mythology, fantasy, and basically things that we can use techniques to get into the minds of young people now and tell the same story, but now with Shaka, instead of being in South Africa only, going across the whole continent and into the diaspora. So of course, this is a new, we have to take ownership of this new creation. And through this process, I actually came up with some concept art, which I want to share with you guys. And at the same time, I've worked with my fellow panelist, Bill. He's actually done some storyboards because we also wanted to make a version of the game of it into a video game. So just give me a moment, I'll share some of the artwork, storyboard of Shaka.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let me know when you see that.
Yes, we
got
see.
it. You got that?
Mm-hmm.
Coming up. Nice. So I'll scroll down because it's quite extensive. That's the new logo, because keeping in mind with the concept of branding and knowing how it's actually done worldwide. Obviously, we're familiar with the people who do the mainstream stuff, So we also had to make sure we also keep consistent as far as our branding and making the imagery right. So I'll just close through this storyboard of Shaka, and you can see the artwork, the original artwork, as we go through the story and the storyboard of Shaka going through from Mpumalanga. That's the place there, right there.
I'm not seeing the artwork right now. Is that? This is just this is just your desktop at this point, just the window with the files. We're not seeing the artwork.
I think it's frozen.
It's frozen. Did you see any, Bill?
I did see. I saw an image.
Oh,
Yeah,
like for 2 seconds, like that was the teaser trailer for the Snyder.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, is it right there? Back?
No.
I think it's beyond your control. And pressing anymore, you know how like when you stress out a printer, it knows when you're late. It knows when you're about to present. Like, yeah, I think if you give us public links or something.
Like stop your.
Yeah, stop sharing and then try it again.
Yeah, let me stop.
And close out of it and go back.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, it looks good. You see it now.
Has everybody seen it?
Yes.
Kenji?
Yes. Yeah, you're good.
Super. So I'll do it slowly.
Okay.
All right. So scrolling down, just let me just scroll through, then I'll talk about it. You see the character, and these are different kingdoms, mythical kingdoms in Africa. The character will go through. So the first one we see in Kalahari Kingdom, going on down.
These are beautiful shots. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
this is an animated feature you're working towards, or
that's what it looks like.
Yes.
I ain't got the money for this.
Yes. This is for three components: video game, animation, and a comic book. Now, the animated feature, this is a discussion we've had in a group with this conversation about what's the aesthetics of Africa. Like, everybody knows anime. Everybody knows the characters and how they look. So we were like saying, how do we get characters that have unique aspects, use things that people shun, like masks. Masks, a lot of people get scared about them. Like, people feel stereotypes and think like, oh, that's primitive or this or that. So we incorporated masks, and you can see in that shot, like the masks are immensely huger, much bigger than the people. So we were going to tell a story through that as well, and the powers. So then again, another stereotype that we deal with. I have to mention that the issue of Tarzan and the image and bombarding. So we're like, I'd like to flip these stereotypes and take possession of them. Like, so in this one, we're seeing these creatures that are swinging through trees and going through all this. So actually, the idea is to tell you, okay, turn this around and actually take control of these abilities and these powers and be able to work through that. Then the other myth is about Africa, the dark continent. So in this one, you see that at the bottom left, there's a story that takes place in Central Africa, and that's a mythical kingdom that's underground. So it's symbolic on 2 levels because it's the dark continent, so to speak, but we're actually saying we actually have light, we bring in light. So it's dark continent and then going underground we're going into our depths, and we're gonna go in and discover what we are about and confront these elements within us that would bring out light. So that's what those scenes are about. Now, the other one, I'm sure Bill can relate to that imagery. That's ancient Zimbabwe. Again, we turn this round, Great Zimbabwe, and we're saying, okay, an African civilization, stone civilization, and what it's about. So in this battle scene, or in the comic book, you'll find a narration about some creatures that have taken over and are ruling over this kingdom. So again, we see how does the character develop and progressively build skills, abilities, and means to actually challenge what in our past was completely wrong and was done wrong. This character, the two-headed monster, is unique in the sense that African people, we always talk about like a present day belief that the past was dark and it's completely about witchcraft or superstition or negative. So in this one, we actually were working with an idea out of the people of Mozambique. I like to borrow ideas from different countries across the continent. And in Mozambique, they have this remarkable artwork of creatures that are tied into each other. And basically, they actually tell stories about how the human mind is. So those creatures are what they call Shetani. Shetani in modern Kiswahili is a term that people use and say that means devil or evil spirit. But we are using it to say that as a negative aspect within us, which the lead character, Aishaka, fights and defeats within himself. So we go on through and you'll see the other thing, which is a big battle that I have, this one right here. The same group, I met people who were like, okay, you have an interesting concept, but we have a problem with how your characters dress, their manner of clothing. That's another stereotype. I said, okay, how do we deal with this? Because your typical superhero is all decked out, you know, clothes all over. And so how did I have to deal with this? Basically, I was saying, let's work with our materials, natural materials that we have across the continent, different materials, and see how do we build up together with the weapons so that characters actually build something that the person identifies with more than looking at them and saying, oh, they don't look like a normal superhero. So you'll find like the arms have these bands around them, which come with different heroic feats. On the back of the neck, you'll find these different things that come through. So you can go on down, and these are now the adversaries that Aishaka meets. And all this will be told, as Kenji was asking, in Son of the Gods, the series and the comic book. Each of these represents about 2 or 3 different comics in terms of what goes on in all those panels. Going through. And then finally, you get West Africa, Benin Kingdom. Benin Kingdom was a unique one. You can see the walled city of Benin, which was actually is known for being one of the phenomena that you can see from outer space, was the walled city of Benin. So that's another aspect where I'm teaching people, hey, we have some unique aspects to our culture. And if we combine that with our knowledge and heroic attributes that we give characters, we'll be able to tell stories where people can actually relate to the whole continent and buy into that. So that's the scenes that take place over there. Now, let me show you something else as far as.
And what's the name of this again, just for those people who may be looking for this? And when do you think it'll be coming out?
We're developing this right now, and actually we're talking to people who are interested, really final stages, investors in terms of who are interested in the video game, in the comic books, and the anime series that we're saying will be added.
Excellent.
So for sure we would announce, and I can see how the status of that is. But it's called Son of the Gods. Son of the Gods is the name of the story. Now, one other thing I wanted to show, some of the artwork that we did together with Bill.
While you're doing that, just for people who are watching who are, may want to create themselves, how much research do you do before you start creating characters? What's your approach to that?
I love that. My approach is I completely dig into the culture of each region. So for instance, like Zimbabwe, by the time I settled in Zimbabwe, I'd read about 6 or 7 books about the kingdom, the ancient kingdom. And then especially for me, it's very important to get sources from traditional people. So anthropology magazines, I look at historical magazines and really dig into what people were doing and talking about from there. So that gives a balanced perspective, because you have to really go from the point of view of people saying, these guys aren't civilized, to another extent where the others are saying, the problem is right now, our youth don't know about our past. They don't care about our past. So balancing that out and then bringing in the elements of myth, fantasy, and fiction, and of course, historical facts. So all through the stories, you'll get historical facts, which people will be like, wow, I never knew that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great, great. Okay. And while you're going to the next slide, I have a question for Kenji as well. When we talk about stereotypes, and of course, when we use the term witch doctor, I'm sure people right away have a reaction to that. And can you talk a little bit about fighting some of the stereotypes that happen, whether it's on the continent or here with some of the people in your own community when you're trying to educate and you're trying to have a good time and be creative.
Yeah, witch doctor. It surprised me how people reacted to just the title alone. But I got a lot of pushback from. I would guess they would be Christians or just Judeo, whatever that is, Western believers that just really recoiled at the idea that I was pushing something that was witchcraft based or about voodoo or stuff like that. And if you actually read Witch Doctor, it's not like that at all. In fact, coming to terms with the real history of voodoo and that heritage is something that the main character goes through himself. He has his own preconceived notions about what the rituals are and what the tradition is, and he has to kind of come to terms with. And it's something that I came to terms with in researching Vodun myself. There's kind of it's a two-faced kind of thing that voodoo does. There is the realistic stuff that they do, the traditions, and it's mostly just ancestral worship, just paying homage to your ancestors. And then there's this other side, which is this really sensational, ooga booga kind of scary hoodoo type of stuff, which is actually used by a lot of believers to get money and to scam people. And it's kind of like an effigy of the tradition that they really do hold dear. But tourists kind of they like the voodoo dolls and they like the shrunken heads. So a lot of believers will sell that type of stuff to them to make money, but the real traditions and the real rituals are a different thing.
Why did you feel it important to create a book like that? Like Witch Doctor? We're talking about Witch Doctor let's talk about Witch Doctor came out in what, the 2000s, early 2000s? Late 90s?
Yeah, it was like 99, like 98 or so, at least when I started developing and researching it. And where it was coming from was I was seeing, so you had only a few books, only a few Black indie comic books at that time. And especially if we're talking about noteworthy, no offense to anybody, but noteworthy books. You had like Brother Man, you had Chocolate Thunder, you had Dreadlock, and that was about it. There were some smaller titles, but that was about it. And then you had what you would see in mainstream comics that represented Black people. And so me coming into it, I was seeing a lot of Black man in cape fights drug dealer. And it was just a lot of that. It was a lot of just very surface, Black on the surface type stuff. And so what I wanted to do was to dig deeper and to really bring Black identity into Black comics. And so that people like us could read a comic like Witch Doctor and not just see a Black face, but to see a Black identity and to understand some of the things that I was kind of concerned about and expressing and talking about, like my own fears and my own identity and the things that I think. And that's kind of how Witch Doctor kind of plays. the overall, the ultimate intention was that he was going to be kind of this supernatural psychologist that would deal with the traumas and the pains of the Black mind. But the first thing that he needed to do was to go into his own head and figure out what was going on in his own mind. So that was kind of my mechanism for really exploring Black identity in comics.
Okay, and you know, it's so the book is ahead of its time, for sure, and it came out at a time where it was really rougher, I think, for a book like Witch Doctor to come out. But now, with what we're dealing with Black Panther and with Wakanda and everybody kind of seeing that, you know, Bill, you know, Sagwa, if you want to chime in on it, do you feel like people are now taking a step back and are interested in, you know, mythology from the continent now, and you know, then now they see dollar signs, so they're kind of open about that, because you know, we're looking at. I mean, none of you guys are really new to this. You've been doing it for a while, and you know, you're creating stuff, you know, not just for your own enjoyment, but also to make a profit and try to publish a comic book. You know, how do you go about selling what you're doing? You know, when you're talking about Shaka Zulu, you know, there's a reaction to that. When you talk about Witch Doctor, there's a reaction. When you say Captain South Africa, there's a reaction to that. And you know, can you talk about that? You know, some of the challenges when you're creating this stuff and trying to get it published and trying to get it out there.
You want me to hit it?
Whoever wants to jump in. And Sagwa, I don't know if you're still sharing your screen, if you want to show some other images, or can we see some, switch to see some of Kenji's and Bill's if you're done?
Yeah. What I'm thinking, let me share one more thing just in relation to
all right, we'll
Maurice. I know just my last one, because I know, and I saw some questions coming out there, but I know some of them will be addressed by Bill as far as page count of comics and all that. That's coming up. Bill already with much published comics, some of which I have, but Bill, you could answer on that. I don't know if you guys have seen through the questions. Now, what I wanted to say, just regarding Black Panther, my last screen presentation. So this is what I'm looking to do together with, like Kenji, for instance, with Witch Doctor or Captain South Africa. The idea is to go and to publish a long feature film or even a short would take a lot of time. Now, what I'm looking to do is to say, okay, through our artwork, how can we get some work done whereby people can actually get a sense of like a 2D animated feature of Witch Doctor or Captain South Africa, and really get like people who are also writing comics out there to actually see a different way they can actually present their ideas and draw into an audience.
Okay. And we have some questions from the audience just to kind of keep us back on track. And we want to say thank you to those guys for bringing it up as well, because it's so much to talk about within an hour, and I'm trying to hit a lot of things, but I want to focus on what the people want to hear. So we have a couple questions here to kind of jump into as well. One person has, asked about, they haven't heard anything about page count, marketing, distribution, or promotion. They want to hear a little more about that and more of a discussion about creating comic book pages with the intent of publishing a comic book. So if you guys can talk a little bit about that and tie it into some of the challenges that you've had. We can talk about Witch Doctor and some challenges. And I think Bill got disconnected. I'm not sure. I don't see him anymore. Oh, you there? Okay.
I'm here.
Okay, so I don't know if you want to take it from there, Kenji, and then we'll go.
Well, I
share your screen as well.
He needs to stop sharing the screen, and I can send some stuff that way.
Let me do that. I'll do it.
The Black Panther question actually did come up in the chat, and so I wanted to speak on that just because, like, we experienced Black Panther after the movie,
right?
But as an artist in the '90s, like when I started doing this, Black Panther was in a totally different situation. And like I said, I had a question in the chat. You guys might not like what I have to say about it, because the reality for me, like, Black Panther in the state that he was in the 90s was the reason why I started making Black comics. And it wasn't a good reason. Like, I started making Black comics because, in my opinion, like, and in the opinion of a few other people and my peers, Black Panther was a farce at that time. It was a fake African comic about a fake African place. And I grew up with people that came from Africa. I married a woman that grew up in Africa. So for me, I found that stuff offensive even as a young man, and it inspired me to make something that was more accurate and more realistic, that represented Pan-African culture more honestly and more sincerely. And it wasn't just written from this, place where we're just going to make up all sorts of stuff and not really deal with the reality of Africa. And that became a real sticking point for a lot of us in the early days, because it was like Africa was going through a lot of stuff at the time, and here's Black Panther not really dealing with it. So we started making Black comics to deal with those issues. And for me, like you asked, what was kind of the intention behind Witch Doctor? For me, when I looked at African culture and I looked at Black comics or Black American culture, there was a wide gap between those things. And we needed to develop something that could show you the transition, show you how we got from here to here, and kind of dispel that thing where, like, Black Americans do this kind of blinders thing where they only see Blackness as American. They don't see African Blackness. They don't see Caribbean Blackness. They just see American Blackness. And so Witch Doctor really needed to go beyond the urban culture and really get into some of the heritage and stuff that kind of came before we got here, to kind of explain how we got here. So for Black Panther these days, I'm great with it. I'm glad that everybody's loving it. But even still, we still need to curate our own stories and our own folklore and our own pop culture. Marvel is great, Black Panther is great, but they don't owe us anything. Black comics as a genre was developed for us, by us, so that we could cater to the things that we needed in a narrative. You shouldn't expect that from Marvel. You shouldn't expect that from Disney. Me, you should expect that from, because I'm telling you that's what I'm trying to do. Bill, Segwa, I think that's what they're telling you they're trying to do. So understand the difference between a Black comic and a comic with Black people in it. That's no offense to anybody that's doing work for Marvel, Image, DC, whatever. But there is a difference. And I know there's a difference because that's the way I wanted it to be when I started doing this.
Okay, and can you show us some of your images that you have from Witch Doctor? Talk a little bit to that, and then we'll go to Bill.
Somebody's talk.
There's a lot to say. This is one of those. It's not an umbrella topic this much. It's a shelter topic, right? There's conversations coming in and out. Some, have weight. Others are just passing by. I'm always wary when Black Panther enters the conversation. I'm glad it's gone now. But I mean, that's a whole other conversation, and that's not why we're here. Just to answer CJ's question and the anonymous attendee's question, that's a beautiful name, Mr. and Mrs. Attendee. Page count, marketing, distribution, promotion. What I'll say is that the biggest success stories that are coming out of Africa are usually by people who are based in the States, right? So if you see like this Kickstarter was, 200% funded, either it's in Ethiopia, Nigeria, Ghana, whatever. Kickstarter doesn't cater to African countries. You have to be living in UK, US, or some in the Western world for you to find success like that. So it's usually like this sad state where it's like you only find success when you leave, right? And it's painful to deal with. So below the super success tier, I'm not saying that that success is invalid, right? I just want to get that out of the way. That success is important, and your benefits, your skills, your talents, and your buffs to your success, that's all at random. Where you end up in life, your gender, ethnicity, the country you live in, the economic status of your country, those are all gambles, and you just make the best of that situation. I'm very happy for those people who are leading in these African conversations. But a lot of the time, success is few and far between, which is why I think in conversations like this are important. It's like, yes, we're doing well, but here are the realities of it. A lot of the time, Comic-Con is where you make most of your sales. I'm sure that's the same for any indie creator in the States, unless you do have a crowdfunding campaign. And even the numbers for the individual Comic-Cons across the continent, they're usually smaller cons, community-based, either university, either, it's just 2 or 3 people who really like anime, and they have friends and they found 1 or 2 sponsors, and that's perfectly valid, right? Go there, build your community. Those are the people that support you, right? Your friends and family are one tier, but your comic community is really where, you discuss ideas, you build on your IP, and you learn to pitch. And then randomly in 2018, ReedPop came to South Africa and did Comic-Con Africa, and their event hosted in Joburg brought through like 60,000 attendees. That was massive. Like the venue was over capacity, but it was one of those things where I personally don't think I'll ever go to a New York Comic-Con. I don't think I'll ever go to a San Diego WizardCon, all these things that I see online on the web, on Twitter. So this was the big event where they brought in movie stars. They brought in these big brands. And yeah, my sales were popping off that day. I was very tired. Yeah, it was a big 4-day event. But in terms of the actual comic books and making comic books, the stories vary. You do definitely, there's a latent responsibility to tell African stories, but there is a silent danger that we mustn't only be able to tell African stories, tell a good story as well, right? So like, I want to be able to tell Captain South Africa, right? I want to be able to jump on Shaka. I want to tell that, right? I want to be able to tell, Brother Man and so on and so forth. But don't cut me out of, like, if there's an opportunity to write for Superman, don't think I can only write, for Static Shock. I can. I am a good writer, right? In terms of the books themselves, you usually find people have low page count books because we're self-funding. And it's what I've found, right? Let me not make blanket statistics. What I've found through my experience over the last 5 years is that, yeah, you'll find books that are like 12 page counts, mostly black and white, again, because it's cheaper. You want to get bigger volumes rather than better quality, right? You want to hit as many people as possible, especially because of the novelty of comic books, right? Comic books in the States have just become a part and parcel of pop culture over the 80 plus years that comics have been out. Very happy for the indie comic scene busting out in '93, and then turning into things like the Invincible TV show, like those great success stories. But for us, like the indie and the mainstream scene only started like less than a decade ago. I mean, there are comics that existed before our time, but for us to collectively create as a community and find our audience and do Comic-Cons and so on and so forth, building towards calling it a sustainable industry, has only happened within the last 10 or so years. Yeah, so you find that when someone's doing a color comic, it's usually digital, right? You'll find a lot of African creators on Webtoons because it's a free platform, free to host, free to get. That $1 hurdle cuts off a lot of people, right? So let's say you have a property on Comixology, right? That's a very accessible platform for most people, but the way that most financial sectors work in different African countries, that having a credit card, right? Just that. Most people don't have credit cards. We have mobile money. You can ask Sagwa, M-Pesa is popping off in East Africa. EcoCash is popping off here. Most people transact with their phones rather than swiping, right? We don't have lines of credit. So having a $1 comic on an international website makes that very difficult. And yes, there are developments towards, you know, bridging that gap of, you know, where we are as a country to get to where the world is as a community. But those steps are very slow, right? If you're not interested in making those advances, like if you're not someone who does finance/coding and is interested in comics, you won't find that as a viable thing because you're like, where's the market? Generally, as a cultural thing, like most people you know, let me speak for Southern Africa. I don't want to blanket the entire continent because maybe like Malawi is popping off. Who knows? It's the term for comic books, animation, all of that is just called Popeyes, right? I'm Englishanizing it as much as possible, but yeah. So Popeye was this cartoon. I'm sure everyone knows Popeye, and that's basically how like adults and the general culture like spread this idea of the validity of comics, right? It's always been 10, 20 minutes of nonsense, right? It's never been viable stories that have depth, that talk about struggle, that talk about history, that talk about past, that talk about Afrofuturism, talk about African futurism, even conversations like Witch Doctor. Those are difficult to have because it's not theoretical for a lot of us. That's very real, right? If you're in an African Christian household, you know someone who's a witch doctor. So it's very frightening to start writing about that. And I'm sure that that experience is very different out in the diaspora because you do want to build up this culture of talking about things, because if you don't, they fall to the wayside. Like if all of us just got wiped out, there goes all of our culture and history, right? No one will talk about it. This point on distribution and promotion, that's again one of those very sad conversations, real and sad. Most bookshops, again, don't recognize comic books as books, right? And I've said this a number of times on different panels, but a bookshop will say, I will stock Harry Potter. Doesn't matter when it will sell, it will sell. But if I stack your African comic book, there is a risk that I'm taking by using up that shelf space. And unless you know that person personally, you don't have the bargaining power of supplier, right? So I studied a little bit of marketing and management, and there's a diagram called Porter's 5 forces. So the bargaining power of suppliers, bargaining power of consumers, the barrier to entry for new people who want to do this, the competition between us. I mean, we're all friends, but there is competition. We're all trying to, like, you know, get people to vote with what they like with their money. And then definitely the threat of subsidies, right? So if you're making a comic and someone else is making an animation, those two things are close enough for someone to be like, why would I read your comic when I can go watch, you know, this TV show that's being developed / game / you know, whatever. There's again, this is big, but I hope I've answered CJ's question. I've been speeding through, I didn't carry no water, like my throat dry. Someone help. Someone take over.
Well, I kind of have a question about that for everybody. As long as you're saying that, I mean, hopefully we're hitting some things for CJ. And CJ, I keep asking questions, but we're not. But it also makes me think about, you know, is the business model that's out there right now the model of success for us? You know, when you talk about getting a book, if you're competing with Harry Potter has a machine behind it. It's not just, you know, the writer, you know, hey, buy my book and hitting small cons. There, you know, there's a large corporation that gets that book into the chains and you know, so on and so forth, that pulls it through. And when we look at some of our work right now, we don't have that. You know, what I do at blacksci-fi.com, we do our best to try to promote as much as we can of what we find and, you know, and the excellence that's out there. But that's one website of, you know, many, and, you know, and competing at a level of, not saying we can, and we do, but, you know, there are the mainstream ones as well. So, you know, I think about that and just wonder, is the model of success that's out there right now, that what they say that we need to do, what we need to follow? I mean, as long as, you know, we see the resources of people going to Kickstarter to raise money and being successful at it. I have a friend of mine, or actually the editor-in-chief, Robert Jeffries, of our website. He's a writer, and he just raised, I don't know, like $4,000 or $5,000 for his third or fourth book. He's really good at raising that on Kickstarter. So, and then, you know, after that, the promotion of his book, the following of his book, you know, all those things come in a way that, you know, isn't the mainstream way to have it done. So I'd like to hear you guys' opinion on some of that, on marketing your work.
Well,
and in the business, what business model should we be following?
So for me, back in the day, back when we first started, you know, we had the intention of making it big with comics, but I was never really the guy that wanted to be so much in the comic book stores, because at the time there were no comic book stores in my neighborhood. And so it didn't really serve me or the audience that I wanted to reach out to get into previews, to do Diamond, that sort of thing. I mean, I did it and I made sales off of it, but I'll tell you honestly, I think the reason I'm here, and look, I did Witch Doctor, that was like 20 years ago at this point. I think the reason I'm here is because I marketed my book through, so to speak, the streets. Like, I marketed my book through the people. Like, I marketed through schools and record stores and you know, hip hop shops and that sort of thing. Like, I don't think anybody really knows Witch Doctor from seeing it in a mainstream comic book. Like, I may be wrong, but I think people know, I mean, if you do know of Witch Doctor, you know of it because you know Black indie comics, and you know that whole thing, which is its own kind of lane, adjacent to mainstream comics. Now, these days, like if the intention is to go big, I would still say, you know, you're traveling way uphill if you're trying to make an indie comic a mainstream success. And there's just so many ways now that we just didn't have back then. There's web comics, there's Kickstarter, there's print on demand. There's so many things that just make it super easy for you to get work out and get work directly to an audience. And I would just say, don't worry so much about that mainstream audience. Like, you need to really tap into the people that want your work, and not just the people that are just going to take it and, you know, slide it in with another 50 books that they got that week. You need people that cherish it, and you need people that this book means more to them than just any other comic book. And that's what I think Witch Doctor tapped into. That's what I think Griot Comics tapped into. That's what Brother Man tapped in. For me personally, that's what Dreadlocks tapped into. Just that identity thing of like seeing a book that represents you, not just looks like you, represents you, represents your culture, represents your history, represents where you've been and where you want to go. It's deeper than just, you know, a Black guy with a cape, or at least I hope so. That's what I'm going for.
Okay. And what can you say after that? It's true. It's true. And the only other thing I think about is that unique to the African American experience, because it always seems like it's kind of, you know, how do you market a book on the continent, you know, and you know, like, I never thought about what Bill was saying about how, you know, we're dealing with Kickstarter, it's kind of oriented towards the UK and the United States. So someone, you know, that's not from those areas has to kind of, is forced to deal with the States, then come back. So, you know, just thinking about how, if there's other ways that we can, and other unconventional ways that we can link up, like here, you know, like in Ecbot, to get the word out, get that information out, and deal directly with people instead of having to go around that mainstream. One of the reasons why I created Black Sci-Fi, for those people who don't know a little bit about my background, is that, you know, for 7 years I was the vice president of Ecbot, and, you know, the goal was really to deal with the direct market. We're running short a little bit on time, and Bill, we really want to see some of your work as well. If you could show us some of your work before we go.
Yeah, I'm on my iPad, so if I share it, everything is going to flip out. Yeah, no, Kenji gets it. But yeah, I can talk about Captain South Africa. if you want to see anything right now, you can head over to my Instagram. It's at Bill Masuko. My name and then art. My name on my Zoom.
Can you share the screen or anything? Any of the images?
I'm gonna try to help. Him out.
Okay.
Thank you, brother man. Captain South Africa was born of many ideas, right? And it started off as a black man with a cape. You know, because that's a lot. It's a big conversation. We're running out of time, so I'll try and make this quick. Sorry, Bob. I'm just gonna speed through it as much as I can. So the conversation started a very long time ago. Obviously, a lot of us were inspired by Black American comics. Be like, I want to see myself as a superhero, right? And a lot of the time, African superheroes just take from American superheroes and just superimpose their blackness or their Africanness on top of it. And as Kenji was saying, the depth to which those characters go is very shallow. My Captain South Africa initially started as just a buff black man in spandex with the South African flag on his chest. But funny enough, like that same year, they made Sam Wilson Captain America. So like, what was I bringing to the conversation? Because Captain America was now a black man. And it took a lot of conversations with feminists who I dated or just interacted with, and talks about intersectionality, about race, gender, class, ethnicity, geographic location, the conversations we've been having here, for me to really just turn my thinking around, or the depth of my thinking, and be like, what story do I want to tell, right? So I always shape Batman and say, like, ain't nobody want to live in Gotham. Gotham is the ghetto, because Batman has been there for 80 years and it's still just as bad as the day he showed up. So the questions that I asked were, how do I actually stop crime? This is a big question. No, not punching someone, right? Because if you punch someone who's robbing a dollar store for diapers, right? You're the villain. You're the villain, because they're not stealing food, they're not stealing whatnot. They're just really trying to provide for their family, and the system has let them down. So how can superheroes fix the systems of which they are a part of, right? How do they not become oppressors, and so on and so forth? And a lot of the people that inspired me were Black South African women. And so Captain South Africa, as you can see on screen, this one over here, this fan art that just came in this week.
That's fan art?
Yeah, that's fan art. I was like, can I pay you?
Wow.
Like, he slid in my DMs. And I was like, can I pay you? Like, this is cover art. Wow. So she's initially in an homage outfit to the original Captain South Africa, with all the colors and the stripes. So it looks like a Captain America outfit, but just Africanized. And then she moves to the white and black outfit. Oh, my process video. She moves to this white and black outfit, and it's not just a white and black outfit. It's a Xhosa outfit, because she's not just South African, right? Within the South African context, they're very proud of the tribes that they come from, right? So where we say Africa, it can break down into countries, and where like a lot of people say South Africa is like, no, it's not that simple, right? It's much deeper than that. You could be South African, but your cultural roots like fray off into different areas. So what I wanted for her was to bring her authenticity, not just to her outfit, but also in the actions that she has. And she's a non-violent superhero. So let me tell you, that's a very difficult thing to write. She doesn't punch nobody. And it's a lot of talking, let me tell you, and a lot of figuring out how to take down villains who are violent with as little damage as possible. And it's been an interesting ride. Definitely, I've had a lot of questions being asked to me. I'm a Zimbabwean comic book artist and writer. So why am I writing Captain South Africa? And like, I'm inspired, it's just not enough. And I think it mirrors the conversations like, why are Black Americans writing African stories, right? It's like, but you're not from there, right? And it's the tipping point between cultural appropriation, cultural appreciation, inspiration, right? Because like, again, conversation is really big, but Captain South Africa is one of my dream projects. I hope to, when I'm done fleshing out the origin story, to pass it on to people of women of color in South Africa. A lot of the time, I've asked friends, can you write? Can you help me write this? Or do you want to take over an arc? And the answer that I get is that I don't know how to write a comic book. right? So that's a barrier to entry for a lot of people, right? They think it's this mythical thing that happens. I'm like, no, it's very simple. Just write down, right? So for me, I've been doing it for so long, it just becomes an internalized process. So we as comic book creators, in order to build on not just making better stories, but to build on the hands that are creating them, right? We have to create these resources like how to write a comic book, right? How to draw a comic book. So those were cool in like the 90s, right? And there's a reason why they were cool to us, right? It creates this bridge to being able to tell your own story, right? When you hear, oh, African animation, that sounds like something that you could never be able to do, but Sagwa's here, right? He's got his pitch deck, he's got, you know, his storyboards, he's working the process, a process which, you know, a lot of people go through to pitch their, oh, the Captain South Africa Funko Pop was on screen right now. And I guess we're out of time now. I had so much more to say, but that's that about that. Thank you so much for listening. Sorry, Bob.
That's excellent. And what's this website if people are looking for it again, so they can follow up? What's this? Where's this
my
at?
Instagram.
This is your Instagram? Okay.
Yeah. So just my name and then art, and you'll find me there. Whew. If there's any questions in the Q&A, I'll answer them as and when the next set of speakers has come on. Kenji, Maurice, Sagwa, it's been amazing chilling with you. Thank you, all the attendees, Bob as well. Yeah, these are the kinds of conversations that I love to be a part of. But whew, I am out of breath, my guy. I'm taking off my glasses. I don't want to see y'all. I don't want to see y'all anymore.
Right. Well,
no, my sanitizer.
We're almost out of time. If Kenji or Sagwa, if you want to say anything in closing, any advice or anything for people out there?
Keep doing it. The more you do it, the better you'll get. You know, keep doing it. The more you'll get better. The more readers you'll get, the more you do it. It's a dedication thing, and I don't know. I might not be the same as other comic book artists. I never did this to make money. Like I'm not doing this to sell comic books or to be famous. I do this because this is just what I do. This is like breathing for me. This is how I live. And the stuff that you see in my pages is stuff that's in my head, and I do this stuff to get to know me better. And I think if you read my work, you'll probably know me better. You'll probably know Black people a little better. And so that's what your virtue should be. That's what your principles should be. Do this so that people will know who Black people are. Do this so that people will know who you are as a Black person. Because it's not a monolith. That, you know, me and Bill aren't the same person. We're both Black, but both of our experiences are valuable in and of themselves. So.
Right. Okay. And do you have a website or wherever people can find your social media?
Kenji.com is my official website. And KENJJI, 2 J's, 1 I. Kenji.com, but you'll probably find me on Facebook more often.
Okay. And Sagwa, if you want to say anything in closing, and how can we follow you as the development of the work comes? Because I definitely want to see the end result of that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I just want to touch on two things. Maurice, you had mentioned about going off what Bill had said about the fact that we don't have conventions out here. Now, when I used to be in Philly, we would easily go to Ekbak. I remember going out there with Brother Yumi and just checking out the comic books. In fact, I saw Kenji's work out at that time, late 90s. But what we need to actually do is to actually work towards getting conventions of our work, like on the continent, shared work of all the artists to actually come put the work together and really have, whether it's in Kenya, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, South Africa, South Africa, but really get all the artists, even if you send digital versions of your work, like it's easy to send digital versions, we can actually work and print that work out here, have exhibitions, because there's conventions, and then really start to build audiences where Bill or Kenji or any other artists out there doing comics don't have to rely on the audience that they've struggled to build around their neighborhoods. We can actually build those audiences out here, crossover, use the networks that we have, because we have tons of people who are into comic books, but they're not seeing the work. And unless we actually built all this work from the past 20 years, put it all together, then people will say, oh, there's a ton of comic books and a lot of work out there. I mean, my brother had to buy Bill's work 3 years ago. Was that Bill 3 years ago? Go to
Lockdown,
Zimbabwe,
time
he
is
just
weird.
happened to be there. Paid my brother. My brother went to buy the work from Bill just because he was out there. And that's how I got his work. Now, that's so difficult. I mean, how many people are gonna have someone flying into another guy's country? And yet we have all these social media panels. We can really pull off what ECBAC is doing together with what we're doing on the continent and really grow this so much. So that's the first thing. Anything else, I'm gonna be updating through Instagram, Serengeti Studio. On Instagram, I'll be building that up a lot more, sharing a lot of the work through that. So we can connect through that network. Yes.
Oh, is there a hashtag for this event?
I think there is. I think there's several ones in the email. I don't know. Can we put it in the chat?
Yeah. So we can just follow along on Twitter, etc.
Yeah, I think there is one for this. So we have to close out, but I just want to take a minute to thank Towson also, as well as, you know, as an extension to what ECBAC does at Towson. This is their 4th year doing this. And, you know, that also gives a higher profile to this work. And I know a lot of the students, you know, over the years that I've attended, you know, I get inspired and they're working on their own work as well. So it is multiplying and it is spreading around there. So thank you, Towson, for having us. You know, thank you all the panelists today. You know, I encourage everyone to check out their websites, their social media, and also blacksci-fi.com. We will be following up with all of you because we want to make sure that we're promoting all of what you do as well, too. All right, so everyone take care and be safe.
Thank you.
See you.
Oh, thank you all so much. That was a wonderful discussion. I do wish we had much more time to keep going into it because I personally was fascinated to hear about you guys, your work, the research and everything that goes into producing this work. I'm always fascinated at the depth of the discussions that we have at these events. We're going to take another short break and start back up at 2 o'clock when we will have a workshop on how to create your own comic. And then we're going to follow that up with our final panel, which will be a discussion on the state of the Black superhero. So for the next few minutes, we're going to start at exactly 2 o'clock. So for the next few minutes, we'll just have the slideshow running while people get prepared. And so again, thank you all. And this is so fascinating. Thanks. Okay, we are back. So Kirsten, thank you. All right, we're going to turn now to our workshop on creating comic books. Is our presenter here on creating your own comics? They're not here yet.
No, it's me.
Oh, there you go. All right, so everyone, all the other presenters, if I would ask you to mute yourself and you can turn off your camera. That way, I think that might work better for the presenters so that other folks aren't visible. All right, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Kinsey Brown, our guide in how to create one's own comic.
Hey, we're gonna do our best, right? All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad everybody was able to join this afternoon. Everybody is safe and sound at home, or even if you're at the bus stop, you're watching us on your cell phone. I want you to be able to have a good time, learn something, and enjoy yourself. And if possible, be able to have some takeaways that'll help you begin to produce some of the work that you might be inspired to create from watching this event. Like Dr. Ward said, my name is Akeem J. Brown. I'm an artist, writer, and creator. And I'm just showing you this video right now, just so you can see that I'm a real person. I'm about to share my screen, and you may not see me to the end. We don't have a lot of time this afternoon, but we're gonna try to jump right in this and have a good conversation, okay? Hopefully everybody can see that screen. Somebody say yes or yeah, or give me a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, good job, good job. Okay, like I said, my name is Akeem Shea Brown. I am an artist, writer, and creator. Many of you may have seen some of my work online or on my website. I'm the writer and creator of How to Draw African Superheroes, a comic book called Umoja Force, and various comic books and coloring books that deal with African characters. And I want to talk a little bit about how to make your own comics. Now, obviously, this is going to be a general conversation. We can't go to every nook and cranny with this, but we are going to try to leave some room at the tail end of this 30 minutes so we can have some questions and answers and talk a little bit with each other and share some best practices, okay? Because I definitely love talking about storytelling and I love talking about our positive images, okay? So when we're talking about storytelling, the main thing that we need to address is that there are stages and steps into getting this thing done. All right. Yes, there are people who are able to wake up and just make comics in their sleep or out of their sleep, but I like to have a little bit of a process. So what we're going to talk about this afternoon is writing the story, writing that dreaded story, drawing the artwork, things that we love, right? Just making the pictures, adding text and graphics. Sometimes we don't think about that. And then a little bit of publishing insights, and that'll bring us to our questions and answers at the end, okay? Now, when we talk about creating that story or thinking about that story, we really don't have to write anything down, not at all. If we have an idea in our head, that is good enough to start. But just for our conversation this afternoon, let's just pretend that we had a little thing in our head. And just for our conversation today, we're going to use just kind of like a little quick idea called Kid Jackal. As a young man, has the, I don't know, he looks like, kind of like a jackal outfit, and he has some superpowers possibly, and he's here to save the day, right? Now, if we want to make a story about Kid Jackal, we can just do something very simple. 3 basic steps. A man is robbing the bank. Kid Jackal enters to save everyone. 3, police officers take the man with the gun to jail. 1, 2, 3, beginning, middle, and end. That's all you really need. You really didn't need to write that down, and you really could start today making your comics, okay? Another form of writing and figuring out exactly what our story is going to be about is using a writing style that is a little bit more of a detailed outline. It's a step above the last outline, but it's just a little bit more detailed. As you see, there's an outline section more fleshed out. The characters are all lined out. There's also something called a tagline, which gives you a brief synopsis of what the story is about in 1 or 2 little sentences, okay? That's just another step above of how you may want to go about doing that, okay? There's another way of creating the story, if you will, or the script, okay? And that would be more of what you might see for a television program or a movie. It's kind of like a movie script, okay? And what this details is what you actually see, okay? It actually outlines the scenes, exterior busy Janema Street. I always say that wrong. Janema Street in Chad, Central West Africa. Jabir, our hero, who's AKA Kid Jackal. There's a female bank teller, and then there's some shenanigans at Aura Bank. And yeah, all you have to do is line all that out, list the characters, who says what. This is pretty much a dialogue script. Now, some people favor this, some people don't. But this is just also one choice that you could have, right? Another choice of script would be more closely related to what comic writers may do if they were working at a bigger company. They actually detail not only the scenes and what happens from page to page, but they also detail what happens from panel to panel. Let's take a little bit of a closer look here really quick. You see exterior view of Janema Street. You see Jabbar tightly holds his books as not to drop them from the busy crowds near him. You see Jabir having dialogue. You see on page 2, suddenly a woman runs out of a nearby building. That's the panel 1 on page 2. So each page is laid out very, very tightly, so you know exactly what's going on, and the artist doesn't have any question, okay? And these are just some basic ways that you as a writer or idea creator can make your story work or happen or flow. Okay, but what do we do once we have that script in hand? What we want to do after that is we want to create something called thumbnails. So if we have our script to the side right here, we can just easily open up our sketchbook and open up to a blank page and begin to generically break down what we want to see and what we want to happen in each panel. You know, if we say that page 1 over here has 5 panels, we can kind of break that down into how we want this to look. It could be like that, or it could be more dynamic. It's totally up to you how you want to do that and how you want to break that page up. But what I do like to do is take this script and look at it and say which part needs to stick out more, which part needs to be bigger, which part needs to be smaller. But those are the things that you definitely want to take in consideration when you write your script and once you have your script in hand, okay? Now, I know we're moving kind of fast and we'll probably get to some questions after this, but I just kind of want to get to all of these parts here so we can have a full conversation. Next, hopefully you guys can kind of see this. This is kind of an idea of what my desktop might look like. So here in the middle, we have our sheet of paper, our 11 by 17 sheet of paper, which is normally the size that we work on for our comic pages. And then we have some drafting tools here. We have a T-square, we have triangles that are very helpful. And then we have this thing called the ellipse template. Now that not only helps you to make word bubbles, but it also helps you to make nice clean circles for those tires or a shield or a planet or a moon or things like that. Those things become very helpful. And what I love about these tools is they always help you to make straight lines. You can move them up and down your page and you can never be blamed for not having a straight line because everything is clear, okay? Everything is right there for you, all right? Now what we do here, once we have our page, is that we try to lay out everything that we had in that thumbnail on a bigger scale, right? Now this isn't just necessarily from the script, this is just something that we're just making up for conversation, okay? Now I'm gonna have to move a little quicker so we can kind of get through all this, okay? Now this is just kind of like a pencil layout. You kind of see a person up there at the top. If I can move up a little bit, it's moving a little slow. You see Kid Jackal down there, maybe protecting a woman laying on the ground. And then we can move to having more fleshed out pencils. Okay, obviously now we're in the bank. We see the gentleman with the gun. We see a little bit more of what Kid Jackal may actually look like and the woman in despair. Now what we do after that is we move into creating these inks. Let me do it this way. All right. And inks are just jet black lines that helps us to delineate exactly what's happening and what's not happening on the page. Clear blacks and clear whites. Now, this is just a basic idea of how this could happen. And unfortunately, I thought we would have time for a little bit of a tutorial, but we definitely don't. So I'm just going to kind of move through some of these pages here to kind of show you how this thing would work. Next, after the inks, we kind of move into some basic coloring. And I like to use my stylus and pen tool just to kind of get into those little small pockets and areas just to make sure the colors are nice and crisp and fresh. And this is kind of an idea of what could happen once you fully flesh out those colored areas, okay? And what we do with this is we take all those skills of penciling, inking, and coloring and finish the whole page. We flesh the whole page out, right? Now let's pretend that this page is done, okay? What we do next is we jump into the area of creating the text for everything, right? Now, when we put the text on, you don't have to type everything out. You don't have to use a computer, but if you do, it's totally fine. You can type things out. You can make a simple bubble with a little tail at the end, and you can kind of put those together. People have been doing it by paper for years, but this is just one way that we're able to do it on our computer, okay? The next thing we might want to do is do some effects. Yeah, we can do those big sound effects words, those splash words, right? Blam and flip and boom, all those kind of things. And if this book is in color, you can definitely color that in. What we also might want to do, since we have the graphic availability of Photoshop and the different types of programs that we can use, Clip Art Studio and Procreate and things like that, we might want to add a little more flair to it that we may not have thought about early on. Okay, now let's just pretend that this page is done. Okay, and we've reached the area or the time in our work that we're saying, okay, we're done with our comic. This is it. This is what we like. Kid Jackal is ready for the market, ready for the shelf. What do we do next, right? And to begin that kind of conversation of what do we do or how do we go about really publishing our comic books, I think we need to take a step back and begin to talk about really how we really want to start the creation of our work and then where we want to end up. And what I mean by that is when you think about traditional comic books, it's a few basic extremes that in which comic books are created. Okay, there's just a few basic extremes in which comic books are created. And let me see if I can kind of put this together here. Yeah, I can just kind of do it this way, right? So at the very top tier, you see there's paper to paper. And what that's talking about is you're starting with paper and you're ending with a paper product. That means you're starting with your Bristol board, your 11 by 17 sheet paper, and you're ending up with a printed copy, right? And then at the very bottom, you see digital to digital. And what that simply means is that you're starting on a program that you have online or you have on your computer, and you're doing everything digitally. You're coloring, you're lettering, you're typing everything out. And at the end, you're also selling everything digitally. Now, in this world, this day and age that we live in, there's various things that can happen in between from paper to paper and digital to digital. You can start at paper and end up with a digital comic. You can start with digital artwork and then print it out physically, okay? All those have different variations of price points and different responsibilities that are attached to those in different business models. And I think it's very important to kind of understand where you sit or where you fit on that kind of guide or that kind of range to understand what your business model is going to be, where you're going to go, how much money you can truly make, and what your longevity is going to be in this industry. Now, let me see if I can close this out really quick and kind of in the last few minutes here, kind of get to some other things here. Let me see. Okay, so hopefully you guys can kind of see this here. I can move some stuff over. So when we're talking about production versus publication, we definitely have to take in consideration how much this stuff is costing. All right. So if you're an artist or a writer or a colorer or a letterer, you can see some of the price points right here. And these prices are actually coming from it's comicbeat.com. It's a web source online, a resource, and a news website that tells you latest about the comic book industry. And this price point gauge is based on a 22-page comic book. We know comic books are usually like 32 pages, but let's just say 22 pages with other ads and things like that. All right, writers $25 a page. Artwork can be easily $100 a page or more. Ha ha ha. Coloring $35 a page. Lettering $10, and the golden cover can be $200. These are just some basic figures for us to think about, right? Let me see here. Now, what about publishing? Let's look at that. Let's see if we can kind of look at those numbers as well. Okay, this is what we mean by production versus publishing and what those costs may be. If you're looking at printing big things, printing like big numbers, 5,000 run, those kind of things, you may be able to get down to a 74 cents price per book or 40 cents price per book, right? But obviously you're putting out more money on the front end. You're putting out a few $1,000s to do that. Can your business sustain that? Can your family sustain that? Do you think you'll be able to sell those in a quick, short burst over the summer or within a year? Or are you going to need a couple of years to do that? So, right, these are questions you have to ask yourself. Let's move down to the next one. SM stands for small and medium printing, right? These are smaller runs. These are printers that you might know that might be local or might be, in the tri-state area that are willing to work with you. They may not necessarily do the $5,000 print run, they may do 100 run, or books, or even lower, 50. They might do 50 or 25. And those obviously a little bit more higher. Those are like $3 or $4 a book. And you may be able to manage that. That may be in your price range for what your business model is. That may be great for you. That's something to think about, right? Let's talk about other types of publishing, right? It doesn't have to be physical. It could be digital. We just talked about things being online, right? If someone is digitally hosting your book, right, you may be looking at, I think that number is wrong. I think that number is wrong. Yeah, that number is wrong. We gotta get rid of that. But you may be looking at how much it costs to be on that person's webpage, whoever it is, whether it's a comic book printing media house, or if it's a web page that prints comics digitally, or just like a webtoon. There's definitely a price point that is associated with that. Now, if we move down to the idea of you being the digital website that houses your own book, right? You may be paying something like $18 per month to host your website, right? Which might wind up giving you, you having to pay $150 to $200 per year to host your website. Is that a business model that you can afford? On top of the creation and production of the book, on top of those numbers from the previous page, you know, whether you paid that to somebody or that is something that you paid to yourself in terms of time, these numbers add up, right? There's also a consignment relationship that you can have with a local comic shop or a comic shop that's interested in your type of fare. And with consignment, you're normally looking at a 60%, 40% split. So 40% of the profits would go to you and 60% profits would stay with the consignment shop. Okay. Now I know that was a big mouthful. That was a lot to kind of digest, but I just kind of wanted to go over some basics, some ideas that we can now discuss and have a good, healthy, wholesome conversation about, and we can kind of share some best practices and some ideas about what are some of the best ways that we found in creating comics. And hopefully what this workshop and this talk has been able to do is been able to inspire and demystify for some the process of creating comics. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so maybe I can see some faces and hear some voices, and then we can talk a little bit about what it means to create your own comics and what you guys are thinking are some of the stumbling blocks or some of the things that in this conversation that you didn't know that you learned that you'd like to discuss more about. But let's open up the floor for conversation. If anybody has a question, maybe you want to put it in the chat, or maybe I'm not sure if Kirsten can see if anybody has a hand up or a question, because we have about 10 minutes left in our talk. I wanted to make sure that we had time to do that. All right. Everybody knows everything. That's awesome. They can teach me something.
So Kenzie, you do have a question, and the question is, can you go into more details about Webtoons, please?
Yeah, slightly, only because I haven't in particular done Webtoons myself. I've looked into it, and the only thing that I could really say about Webtoons, I guess there's two different things here. There's Webtoons, the actual website, the company called Webtoons, and they have a process in which you can pitch to them your story ideas, and they will let you know if you are eligible to be a part of their website. And from what I understand, there are ways that you can earn money from that site, but I'm not sure exactly what all those details are. But if we're talking about just Webtoons, comics online, then I think there's definitely ways that you can do that yourself. Again, if you have a platform. Now, ways that you can do that for free, obviously, are if you have your own website, if you have Instagram or Facebook, you can just go bananas right then and there. You don't have to wait. You don't have to wait for anybody's approval. You can just go and start. And I think a little bit of the success that we may see from a lot of people in our community is from people making comics on social media, people posting every week, people making images some every day. And they're creating that following with that. And from creating that following, they're beginning to have a target market or a focus group that is very much interested in seeing more of their work. Now they're addicted. They gotta have it. You have it. You have us waiting for this thing every day or once a week. Now we're addicted to this story and we gotta have it. Now we're willing to pay for it. How much is it? That's when you say, aha, this is how much it is. And then you begin to build your business from there. But Webtoons is definitely good. It's definitely viable. I think it's very smart. I am a physical media kind of person, so I like the Webtoon side, but I also like the physicality of having things. When you don't pay your light bill, then you're out of comics. Internet's out.
So thank you. Another question that you have in the Q&A is, what apps are you using to create your comic books, and what do you use each of them for?
Sure. Primarily, okay. Well, yeah, I pretty much am a PC person. That being said, I like the Adobe Suite. I have a subscription, and I use Photoshop and Illustrator primarily. I know some people like to use other programs like, what is that called? The Design Studio? I forget what that one is called. But yeah, there's other programs that Adobe affords and offers you that you could definitely make publications, books and things like that. It's just that Illustrator and Photoshop, excuse me, are the best ones that allow you to draw, allow you to add text and things like that. There's other, so I use Photoshop mainly for the fine-tune drawing. Like I can go there with my stylus and act like it's a pencil, and I can actually sketch and draw feet and draw buildings and monsters and cars and things like that. I can do that in Photoshop. What I do in Illustrator mainly is for text, laying down the text and the lettering, creating the logo possibly for the character, like if they have an emblem, or the logo marquee for the comic book cover. I can do that clean and clearly, more so in Illustrator than in Photoshop. So that's pretty much what I use those for. Photoshop is for like the more organic type of art, and then Illustrator is for the more clean cut vector type art that could be used for marquees, titles, text, things like that.
Thank you. I have a follow-up to that question. Is there an app that is better for young people to learn with?
Yeah, that's a very good question. That I am not fully sure, but I would say that if you use things like, what are those things like Mac Paint and things like that, you can do some nice drawings in those programs. Procreate is not necessarily a program for a child, but you can create and Procreate. I know people like Clip Studio Pro or Clip Studio EX, things like that. Those programs I think work well. And I think at the end of the day, any program that allows you to draw clearly, and you can test, everybody's not the same. Everybody's taste is not the same. You can test it out and see if you can actually draw clearly, freely, and comfortably in that program, then that's the one for you. The only question after that is how you're going to add text. And if you go back to my model of where you sit on the production versus publishing grid, are you going to stay digital and move to print? Or are you going to be a digital artist with a digital end product? Those are the kinds of questions that you have to ask yourself, and they can begin to detail or dictate what type of tools you're going to need or should use.
Thank you. I have another question from my audience. Which type of publishing do you suggest for artists who are starting out? Also, what types of publishing do you use?
Yeah, so for those starting out, it depends on what age you are too. I guess if I'm talking to young people, my children create their own comics. I give them 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. I fold them in half, staple them, and they go to town. They've made like at least 4 or 5 each, fully colored, fleshed out, and they're comics. They're one-offs. They're rare. It costs a lot of money, but they're comics. You could Xerox them and go to Staples and get them copied and things like that. But for the most part, one-offs aren't bad. Create one-offs and see what happens. Who wants it? Who likes it? If you want to sell it, fine. If you heard Brother Kenji earlier, he said, he's not really interested in the financial aspect of it. He wants to tell a story. So who are you? What do you want to do? Do you want to tell us? Do you just want to tell stories, or do you want to actually make a profit from this? Do you want a little bit of both? But what I typically use for publishing is I am a digital artist, and I like my end product to be print in hand. So I go from digital to paper.
Practice.
Don, your conversation is live. So if Kenji can mute so that Kenzie could finish, that would be great.
Or let me in the joke. All right. Well, anything else? Anything else, my friends? If there's nothing else, I want to thank Towson University for having me this afternoon, for allowing Ekbach into your home and allowing us to speak to your audience, or now this is our audience, our family, about storytelling. Storytelling is so important. It's so important. Storytelling allows us to transmit ideas and information from one person to another person. It allows us to make that transmission not only to our peers, but also to our younger people, to our children. And eventually, once we have products that can withstand the test of time, they're in our hands, they could be on the shelf, they could be archived online, these stories could be transmitted to our children's children. And that's the win. For us to tell our stories and let those stories last forever. I don't know if that was a good sign off.
Okay, Brother Kenzie, I had actually another question for you. I don't know. I'm hearing myself.
No, I hear you. It's cool. It's clear.
Yeah.
I guess we have another minute, I guess.
Do you all have a tool that you can provide or suggest that can guide people through the process of making their own comics, or just thinking through stories and things like that?
Oh wow, man! Let me tell you, if you Google how to make comics, there's like 800,000 entries online. Whether it's a video or whether it's a book or a magazine or article, it's everywhere. It is everywhere. Now, if you're talking about specifically people that are interested in telling stories that have a cultural bent or a cultural foundation, then I would definitely say look at people like myself. I think I have one of the few books that talks about how to create African superheroes, but then also look at and research the books that you like, that are already out there. Just like anything else, if you want to get good at a certain sport, you watch the pros. You have coaches and things like that, but you watch the pros. Now, is there like a program or algorithm that children or people can use to kind of allow them to go through the process? No, not that I know of. I think some people have tried, but not that I know of. I think the best thing are listening to the people that you spoke to today, that you learned about today, talk to them about their process, have them share their best knowledge and their best practices, and then, ask those pertinent questions. I'm having trouble with page 5. Can you take a look at this? What do you think? Or this is my story synopsis. How does it sound to you? Oh, I drew this building. Do you think it's in perspective or do you not? You know, sometimes we forget as African people, our technology is us more so than, you know, these boxes. The technology is us. You know, so you don't have to look for a book. You can call your brother or your sister. That I would say, if that helps.
That's really helpful. Thank you so much for this session. We are going to take another short break, and then we'll come back for our final panel discussion at 2:45. We will begin, and that will run for about an hour. And that discussion will be on the state of the Black superhero. So we're doing well. And this has been a fascinating conversation. And so if we could start the slideshow while we get everyone prepared for the final panel, can we do? Hey, welcome back. We are about to begin our final panel, which will be a discussion of the state of the Black superhero. So I will turn it over to our panelists and our moderator. Again, we really appreciate you all for participating in this session and in this discussion. We really look forward to another fascinating discussion with our guests. And our moderator, I believe, okay. Give us a second to get everybody situated. Some folks are having a little problem with their audio. But are our panelists all here? I see Stephen, Elion is we can't see you, but we do see your name. And, okay, there we go. And we're waiting to try to get Regine set up. Okay, she's going to try to get restarted. All right, so just give us a second. So we've got. Well, while we wait, why don't we do this? We'll have each of our current panel attendees introduce themselves, and then we'll get going. Whoa, what? Okay, yes. So if we would, please we'll go one by one, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get the discussion started when Regine can join us. Stephen, would you like to start?
Sure, I'll go ahead. I'm a comic book artist. This is my 30 years in the comic book business and freelancing. I've done work for DC Comics, Marvel. I do my own comic books, Ajala, which you see in the background, or this side right here. And well, I just worked for Marvel. I did the Deadpool annual. And currently I'm working on a book called Indigo Clan, and another book or a story featuring a woman called Octobriana. So I'm pretty busy right now doing a few things here and there. And that's some of my story.
Great. Elian, would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am, hello, everybody. I am Elians, a Cameroonese based in Congo. We have 2 Congos in Africa, so I'm in Congo, Brazzaville. I'm a comic book author. I also created a festival of comics, which is getting to its 6th year here in Congo. Bilili BD Festival, and I am also a curator on exhibitions about comics.
All right, great. And we have one other panelist. Would you please introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Somto Ajulichuku. I'm from Lagos, Nigeria. I represent a company called Vortex Corp, which is a creative content company keen on exporting African culture through comic books and animation. We've worked with, our main focus is a digital distribution platform called Vortex 247, which encapsulates the African comic book experience digitally. Not just the African comic books, but also the comic books from across the world from Black creators and publishers. We've had the honor of publishing comic books like Sankofa Man from Akinshire Brown, Purge from Roosevelt Pitt, and also titles from across the continent, like Strike Guard and many others from publishers in Nigeria and across the continent. And I'm excited to be at the Townsend 4. It's my first time, and I'm excited to, get in the conversation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we're going to turn now to we're still trying to get Regine up and running, but in the meantime, Brother Ikenze is going to get us started with a few questions for our panel. Can we do that?
All right, everybody. All right, how are you? I'm back again. Nobody wanted me to come back again, but I'm back again. Nobody asked me, but I just want to say it's actually an honor and a pleasure to see all of you on this panel. Many of you, well, it's not even many, it's 3 of you guys. What am I saying many? Some of you I've known for some time. I've been able to speak sparingly with, over internet or text or through email, but I'm so glad to see all of you in real time, motion pictures. It's good to see all of you alive, breathing. And I hope you guys have been making a whole lot of comics and been happy, these past few months, because it's definitely been a trying time, but I'm glad you guys are all here with us today. All right, so unfortunately, Sister Regine wasn't able to join us as of yet. When she's able to join in, we're gonna move forward and continue with some of her questions. But just to kind of start off, I do have some questions from her that I think she forwarded to you, and we're gonna kind of give you an opportunity to go over some of those. You already talked about who you were and a little bit about your work, but this topic of the state of Black superheroes, the state of Black superheroes and where we are, what's our perspective on Black superheroes in current media, and where do we think they're going, is going to be our conversation this afternoon. But I want to ask kind of like an initial question here, all right, of each of you. Who was the first Black superhero that you ever came across, and how did you feel when you saw them, your impression when you saw them, and what did they mean to you? We can kind of go around. I can ask Stephen first.
Oh man, that was back in 1915, man. I don't remember.
I was about to say you the oldest.
I guess it may it either was, I think Storm. I think Storm was the first one. No, it wasn't Storm. It was I was collecting Shogun Warriors. It was an African man from, I forgot what country, but he's one of the Shogun Warrior pilots. He piloted Vanguard Ace of the Shogun Warriors when that was a comic book back in 1980. Probably the first one.
Awesome. I see Sister Regine is in the building. Awesome. Can you hear us? Uh-oh. Are you muted still? Test. No, not yet. Oh, there we go. Not yet. Okay, keep trying. No problem. Keep trying. Keep trying. All right, we're gonna keep going. All right, my sister Elians. Elians. Let's get the baby to answer this question. Bring the baby in.
No, I say she's sleeping. I wanted to say, Stephen just stole my answer. Stephen, we're not starting this thing the right way. Tomorrow.
Oh, you read Shogun Warriors? You read Shogun, or was it Storm, or you read Shogun Warriors? Uh-oh, she freeze, I freeze.
I think Eliance froze for a minute. Oh, she'll come back. Oh, there we go. Stephen wanted to clarify, Eliance, were you speaking about Storm or were speaking about the Shogun Warrior series?
Oh, you mean me?
Yes.
Oh, Ororo, Storm.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
The
Because
Storm is yours.
Ororo is her name.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the Storm is
Oh,
yours.
I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah, Storm
sorry. I'm not calling her by her.
No,
her
I
mother's
ain't say
given me.
anything. Storm is yours. Storm is yours. Mine was a Storm. I thought.
No, when you started giving the answer, I was like, no. Then you shifted.
That's totally fine.
So she's all you. She's all you.
But if I can just add something about this, the thing is, she was not just the first Black character, a superhero. She was also the first Black female superhero. So to me, it was something. It had a very specific impact, if I can put it that way.
Absolutely. Very good. Brother Somto, how are you, my friend? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, bro.
All right, the busiest man in the planet. Busiest man. You know what I mean?
No, definitely not. Definitely
Yeah, I think
not.
so. He used to work for Madiba. That's what it was. He said no. But good seeing you. Same question to you. What was the first Black superhero that you remember from the old days of liking comics, watching cartoons that inspired you, gave you inspiration, that really made you say, you know what? I want to do this.
I'm the first Black characters that I encountered growing up. Definitely, first one was Lobo. I don't know if it's a superhero, but it's Lobo, from Superman. Yeah, I always felt like he was Black because he was this guy that he came with the bike and the chain, and I was like, okay, this guy has something about him. I felt like he was Black. Then Spawn. Spawn was also one of the first times I encountered a Black character. Before I started to actually see Black characters in superheroes like saving the day, it took me a while actually. Because when you came up with the question, I kept trying to think about it, like, what was the actual first Black superhero? It was more recent times. But then there was Captain Africa, which was also a comic book that used to feature in the newspapers back when I was growing up. That was one.
Brother Dwayne Ferguson.
That was very fun.
Was that Dwayne Ferguson?
Yeah, he's from around my way, back in Jersey.
Yeah, so Captain Africa was definitely one of the Black characters that inspired me. But then my love for, when I decided to make comic books, was much later, like in college, and that was a Nigerian comic book called Omo Boy, which I randomly saw under a table, and I'm like, wow, we make this, and then I think I want to make this too. Yeah, that was time.
Awesome. Okay, Regine, are you able to take the next question?
I think so. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Right.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
All right.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, y'all. Thank you so much.
I'll humbly mute myself and I'll listen in.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Yes, good talking to all you guys.
Take care, King.
Okay, so to piggyback off of the questions Kinsey was initially asking you all, how did the characters that you just mentioned, how did they help to inspire you and the work that you do in comics, cartoons, or animation? Anyone can jump in.
All right, I'll say something. I don't know, because I like seeing him there. I forget his name too. I just know he was a Shogun Warrior pilot, and that was one of the reasons. I mean, I was a big Shogun Warrior fan because I had those toys, those big 2 feet tall toys, when I was a kid. But then later on, I collected comic books. There was a Storm, there was Power Man, Falcon, and other people. But it was nice seeing myself, especially where I grew up. I grew up in a mostly white town in Georgia, in Scotch Plains, New Jersey. And it was good seeing myself reflected in comics. But I don't really have much to say about that because my Black consciousness came out later, and in wanting to do see more Black people in comics and whatnot. But as far as then, I was just trying to. I did want to see more Black people, but I had a different consciousness then.
Okay. Samta, Eliane?
What I can say is actually the first character, the first superhero that I met as a Black superhero was Ororo. But the thing is, I grew up in a French-speaking country in Africa, Cameroon, and I had other Black figures in comics that were not the American kind of superhero. We were more under the French and Belgium kind of heritage. So heroes who are doing amazing things, but just being not regular persons like Tintin and Milou, and then the Black characters that I grew up with were Kwaku, a young Black guy who had an open white shirt and doing stuff in his village, amazing things. Kimbo and Kita, those were the Black characters I grew up with. And then at some point, I really dove into French, Belgian, Asian, and American comics. And it was a very funny mix because I never really realized that they were not Black. I related so much with the struggles and the challenges of the characters that even if you take the Smurfs were blue, so I could not even imagine. Okay, they had the dark Smurf who was biting everyone, but that's, even to me, the dark one was not Black, you know. he was dark. And then it's because I grew up in so many and diverse characters that I wanted to do the same thing. I started drawing when I was 9, doing my first comics when I was 9. It was really clear in my head that I wanted to do comics. And it's when I grew up that I realized that even the Kwaku I grew up with, the Black character that I grew up with, was drawn by a white man. All the Tintin and all the other anime, cartoons, comics that I used to love were drawn by white males, and that really was the even Ororo at the end of the day, Storm. And at one point it was like I got invested with this mission that I wanted to exist as a woman doing comics, and that's the reason why Regine, I was so happy and glad to get in touch with you a couple of years ago. I was like, oh, we are many of us women creating our own stuff. And so it's really a global, how can I put it? It's a global thing. I grew up with an imagery, and then I realized that behind the imagery and behind the stories and the good storytellings that I was reading and digesting, none were Black or even Afro-American, Caribbean, African, none were Black, and few were female, like even sometimes none were female. So I wanted to exist as a woman doing comics.
Samto?
Yeah.
It's okay.
I thought it was on off. Thank you. Comic. So the question,
Well, how did the characters that you mentioned before, how they help inspire your work?
Well, definitely just seeing that there could be heroes that could save the day, and they were of the same color as I am, was really inspiring, even just as a child. But definitely when I came in contact with the Omoboy comic book, which was a Nigerian comic book, it kind of gave me a next level of revelation into how impactful these stories are for the youth. And even just how they can expose, they can tell a lot of stories and take you to places that you haven't been. And definitely seeing the environment in the comic book, the way his family was, the way he interacted with his mother, the way he showed his respects when he was greeting her, and the native food that he was eating looks in the comics. And I could see my own life, I wanted to do the same thing. I wanted to show people our cultures, give people room to experience our languages, get to understand our mythology, and just give people the same experience that I experienced, learn about Greek mythology, or even knowing about, or even beginning to even understand how comic book cities, which are fictional, were even related to real cities. Like when you look at Hell's Kitchen in Daredevil, that's related to an American city, and it has similarities, and then Gotham, so Metropolis, and they kind of, had ways of exporting the culture, through that. And I just wanted to create that same experience.
Awesome. And I have to laugh because Steve and I were from New York City, and that's where Hell's Kitchen is. So when we see Daredevil's Hell's Kitchen, we're like, that doesn't look like that anymore.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. Oh my gosh. So my next question is, what is your opinion on the depiction of Black superheroes in mainstream media in the past versus now? Like, what changes are you happy to see? Are there any changes that you could do without? And this relates to movies or comics.
Well, I'm seeing a lot more. Okay, go ahead, Samson.
Okay. Oh, okay, thanks. Thank you, Steve. I think definitely one that I'm excited that that a lot of, like, Black Panther was really revolutionary in terms of bringing clashing cultures, in terms of not just showing the Black American experience, but also showing that through the African experience, on the continent, and then representing that as one people, which we are. And that was really powerful for me to see that movie happen, and see the way the cultures and the diversity was celebrated by people all over the world, people of color all over the world. That was amazing, proud moment. At the same time, when you look at projects like Luke Cage or Black Lightning, that's amazing representation, but it's always coming from the same perspectives of this superhero saving people from the hood. They don't make the Black hero have a larger perspective on how he impacts the world, but when you watch the Justice Leagues with the Batmans and the Superman, it's on a global level. So I always see that local champion type feel in the narrative that they have right now. Always trying to stop the drug guys selling drugs in the hood to the people. Yeah, we get that. but that narrative is kind of rhetorical and is putting it in the same place that I feel like that narrative could definitely be wider. And I'm definitely seeing that in, comic books that are coming out now, such as, telling a more fantasy perspective for Black stories, or African stories, delving into our mythology, delving into science fiction, taking it to uncharted regions where we can show representation, and capture an even wider audience, because that's what anime does. It's Japanese, but it's larger than life, So when you watch Ghibli projects, or when you watch projects like Attack on Titans, it takes you to such a magnanimous level that you're not still, it doesn't still keep people in the same box as a person of color when watching it, because you're seeing the same experiences, but this time it has a hero in it. I feel like that narrative could leave that box, but I'm excited.
Steve?
Yeah, I'm a big sci-fi opera fan, like Star Wars and stuff like that. And so it touched on what Somto was saying, how, we're kind of parochial in our stories, or we are represented parochially in our stories. And I want to see like us, out there in space, or with giant robots, or doing something crazy like that. I want to see Black people doing cool stuff. So I like the superheroes, the villains, the indifferent. And so I mean, as far as what was out there before, what I didn't like was like the stereotypes they would use, the unlikable person that would be in the scene, the only person that would be in the scene or the movie, the early Eddie Murphy movies, or Whoopi Goldberg movies like Jumpin' Jack Flash, or 48 Hours, where they're the only Black character in there with no family, no friends in there. And I think that started changing. I don't know when it started changing. I liked when I saw Blade, when he had a Black friend and there was a Black woman lead, or in the movie. And then later on we see us doing our stories, and we had our subtleties, our culture in there, the things we do, how we communicate with each other, and our perspective. That's what I'm seeing now, and what I'm really liking in what I'm seeing now. But sometimes people still go back to the old stereotypes, or with the sidekick, or the stereotypical person, or the unlikable person, just for no reason. And but I see a lot changing. I see a lot I can't believe I'm saying this now, what the young people are doing. But what's coming out now, I'm very hopeful for, and it looks great.
Hey.
What I can say is at some point in time concerning superheroes, I really got something with Spider-Man, because to me, that character had real issues, bills to pay, a love life that was really like a roller coaster. And Spider-Man was really a superhero that I enjoyed reading or watching. But so it's very different from Superman, even though nowadays Superman is having his own issues. But back when he was created, Superman was just super everywhere. But with time, and I am very happy and privileged to be part of one project, especially, even though we can talk about it later, but I can open some brackets on it. I'm working on an exhibition with something like 60 African artists doing comics all over the continent. And I've been able to see some wonderful works from not just African-American artists, not just from UK artists or European, Black European artists, but Black African artists on the continent. And it was wonderful to discover talented artists like Bill. I was so glad to see that he was in the panel before ours. Bill Masuko with Captain South Africa. the fact that we grew up with the golden age of superheroes, American mirror of what a superhero is, has been a fertile ground for many artists all over the continent to create their own kind of superhero. In Togo, Benin, Nigeria, because in Nigeria, like Vortex Corp, you have like Little Orishas, a job on the justice, I can say Justice League of Orishas, with the mythology of Orishas. When we know the Odin mythology, the northern mythology, or the Greek mythology in Nigeria, you've came up with so many interesting stories with I won't say just local, but more African grounded background mythology and spirituality and stuff. So now I'm so happy, even with the Black Panther, even though there are some people who hated the movement, or people who were just so happy to see a Black character so powerful and having such a global impact all around the world. What came up, and not just after Black Panther just helped open more widely a door that was already getting open. It just helped getting to know and making people more curious about what can African actually do, if not of Black Panther, which was done by white man, whatever. And the movie was not even from a white man at the end. It was something really rooted on the continent and all around, but still, it was a way for people to really discover all the riches and the diversity of how African Blacks can absorb, digest, and interpret what they have been consuming. When, for example, you said Attack on Titans, and that's very Japanese. We also grew up with all this Japanese, from Dragon Ball to Monster to Billy Bat, Attack on Titans, all the shoujo shonen and whatever. And all those influences have really helped creators to have a very wide panel of creative superheroes.
Thank you. Thank you. So next question. What's your creative process when making your own characters? Is there anything that you are specifically mindful about when creating them? Steve, I'm just going to call on you.
Okay.
Oh, Steve. Okay.
No.
You'll be next.
So, yeah, for me, it's the story first, and then the characters come in, and I think the characters fit into the story or who they are. I don't create stories too much. I mainly draw the stories, but when I do create a story, that's what this is. I always have a story first. I mean, before I was writing, I had the story in mind. I just didn't think myself as a writer, so I didn't know how to put it together. And then when I joined the studio, a man named Gray Williamson helped me put together a story, or help me with the framework of a story and how to make a story personalize it, so focus on the character, and then the background, the setting, and everything could be how that character reacts to that story or reacts to that environment. So that's where I started writing after that point. My own story and forming it out. And then later when I met our friend Robert, we and Ajala came together. He was the main force behind the story, but then I started adding stuff to it, and we started becoming more collaborative as far as the plot was going forward. So that helped me a lot too. And his input on my story helped me with my stories too. So it's always an ongoing process of input and feedback. And I think you had some points too with when I was doing my French book, when he
me?
Yeah, because he asked you what you thought about it, and he told me some of your notes, and I said okay, so I added that to it. But it's a process of the story, characters, character development, and character interaction, and dialogue. Some of those last things I'm working on, or I need to work on, but those are some things I That's part of my process. Is then once that's together, the stuff, the overall story, the plot, the beat outline, and then I go into it from there.
Elian?
Yeah, you next.
Yeah,
Elian.
Elian. Can you hear me?
Sorry. No, my screen froze.
Okay.
The screen froze. Sorry. So I didn't get that I was the one to speak. Sorry.
It's okay.
If I can just share this to explain my process.
Please do.
You have 3 covers. It's an ongoing series I am drawing. I did a crowdfunding to publish it, and I am now at the 3rd volume, working on the 4th. But why am I showing this is because I want to talk about how I create the characters. And just like Steven said, I start by writing the story, but not just the story, but I put so much, how can I put it? I put so much in each character. Like, for example, this is the diary of Eben Duta. Eben Duta is my main character, the light-skinned girl at the center of the image. And why did I created her like that? It's because back in the days, we had the same appearance. I was very thin. I was what American called light skin. And I was really uncomfortable with my skin for various reasons. Not really the reasons African Americans have concerning the light skin and dark skin, discussions. But I had various complex and issues with my skin and my appearance because people assumed that since I was light-skinned girl and thin, I could easily find a man. I could even marry a white man. And those were the things that I hated. I didn't want to be in a box of you're just meat for foreigners. You can never get in touch with a real Black man because he liked thicker girl and you're not thick enough. So when I created that character, it was really the story behind her creation, like having that, that appearance, but not the comfort and the cliche and the stereotype people wanted to attach to their appearance. And I called her Eben Duta. Eben in English is ebony, but I don't want to translate it to ebony because ebony, I'm sorry, but it doesn't really, in Google, you don't get into safe for work images when you type ebony, just ebony like that.
Really?
So I kept the Eben, but like that. For real, it's just the meaning is dark, black, and Duta, D-U-T-A, it's in my mother tongue, and it means drawing. So I wanted to create a Black character, and since I watched.
Did she freeze?
Yeah, she froze. Oh,
okay. She'll be back. Is she back?
Yes.
Hi.
We see you. We're back. You're back. You're back.
You're back. I'm really getting into it. Like, oh no, she froze.
I'm just did like, it's midnight. I'm like Cinderella. I'm running away. So
you can reshare if you want. If
so,
you want to share your image.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
And the character, her name is Eben. Her name is Eben Duta.
Oh, she froze again. She froze. Okay, so Samto, if you want to start, wait. Okay. Listen, we're all working through it. My audio, said goodbye, so we're all working through it. Don't worry.
Did I tell you that she has a shitty life? My main character.
No, you
it's
didn't.
possible.
We missed that part.
Is she coming back?
Yeah, she's here. She's here. We see her.
You're just on mute. Elion, you're on mute.
Okay, I will try to be I will try to do this quick before we get interrupted again. So her name is Eben Duta. Duta means drawing in my mother tongue. So I wanted to create a Black character. And since with all the comics character that I've digested, I wanted a name that could be pronounced everywhere on the world. Consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel. So I came up with Eben Duta. And when I created her mirror character, in French they call it a faire valoir or an antagonist. There are names for that. She's not really the villain, but she's her, you know, when you have two characters to bring value to one and to the other, from depending on the narrative. So I created the second character, who is a dark-skinned girl. She's very dark. She has very short hair, because both have natural hair, but she has very short hair with very large curls, you know. And her name is Claire, like fair, Moula. Moula means oil, but the reason why I named her Claire Moula, like light oil, was because she's plumpy. It's plumpy, the name. She has curves, a lot of curves, and she's full of confidence. She's so proud to be the archetype of that Black dark-skinned woman, and she doesn't have the complex. She doesn't have wigs. She doesn't wear wigs. She's so happy with herself, and I really wanted to work with these two characters, changing and transferring the complexes and the challenges of each character to create a new dynamics of how women can see themselves in an environment that don't wait for them the way they are, but who want to fit them into a specific box. And that's really how I create my characters. I create a list of what are the stereotypes or the cliches, and I try to twist it and I add some sparkles of humor so that things will go smoothly and people will get the message and not just focus on how to be offended and just create discussion and miss the target of why I created this or this character.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Somto. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Oh, hi, thanks.
Hey, it's okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, great. So I just wanted to, I mean, it's great that we can share a screen so I could show you a little bit of our process.
Yes, please do. And then we'll see Steve's after.
Okay. Let me just click share. So here is a little manual we make for our project from time. Yeah, here's a little manual that we create for our projects from time to time. It's called Panels and Chat Bubbles. And this is for a project called Land of Gods, which I created alongside a co-creator who lives in New York in the US. Her name is Janica Barnett, brilliant writer, storyteller. It's called, this was our bit of our process in Land of Gods. You know, first we focus on the story development. That's like, you know, creating the world and writing our stories within it. Then the next part of what we do is like working with the character concepts, like kind of sketching out what our characters look like, you know, from the ground up and trying like different looks and feels. You know, the designs, the times of which they are and how we want them to look like. And this is kind of what the final character design ends up looking like, you know, with the turnarounds. So we can pass the project on from artist to artist, that they kind of have a full understanding and grasp of the project at every time. A key part of what we also do is the world building, you know, which is like a key, which is like an important method of us kind of also defining the story that we're trying to tell. Also defining the world that our story is being told in. which also affects the characters because the characters are products of the environment. So if the world is a harsh world and or a dark place, it affects the way the characters behave and how they think and how they struggle to survive, you know. And then there's some parts which are like royal and up in the sky and, you know, lofty, and, you know, and those people also have a whole different perspective as well. That's pretty much our process. We start with just identifying the story, developing it a little bit, you know, defining our characters, developing them more, and also developing our world. And once those three pillars are in place, we pretty much have our story together.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Steve, do you have any work you'd like to show the audience?
Yeah, just give me a second. Okay. All right. Here's some stuff from Indigo Clan. Okay. I'm gonna pull up. Share screen. This is I'll go with the thumbnail sketch first. You see it?
Yes.
What do you see? I'm not sure what you see.
Yeah, we can.
Huh?
We see page 22 through 23.
Oh.
You have it's a double page splash.
Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah. So this is this is a thumbnail sketch of one of the image I was doing.
This is pretty cool.
And so the final, I'm gonna show you the pencils and I'm gonna show you the color. So this is how I start out with with thumbnail sketch. Sometimes there's a process in between this, but I'm gonna go right to the next process, which is the pencils.
So this is you start with the outline first.
Yeah, and then
this is the
pencils. So you see the pencils now? The full pencils?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the finished pencils of the process of this. And this is a double page spread. And here's the next one. You see the next page too?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I have the next page of this. This was a monster works. I had to do this project has been a monster. Is an ongoing book I'm doing for this guy on the West Coast. And he has a lot of metaphysical things going on in there. So a lot of special effects and whatnot. And so the next screen I'm showing you is a finished color. So a lot of things I gotta leave out because the special effects he puts into the project. And I have my colorist, or the colors of the book, Walt Barner. You know Walt, Ray
Yes,
June.
Walt's great.
He did this thing on here with the colors.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, so
very vibrant.
And here's his color for the first the first double page spread and the second double page spread. Okay, let me see it. Okay, yeah, you see the second double page spread as well?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so the process the process is like thumbnail, pencils, color with this one. The next what I'm gonna show you next is added process. Sometimes what I have go in between those two things, which is I call the develop sketch. This it right here. Yeah. So this one is the beginning of this book with I call it develop sketch. And you guys are seeing that right now, right? With the guy in front of the tree and the motorcycle.
Yes.
Yeah. So as a loose sketch, I do. Sometimes this is where I have the most fun, and I do this just to make sure everything is in the right place and the faces are kind of firmed out a little bit. More so where thumbnails are just for placement and arrangement of the composition. The developed sketch is more or less more finished ready for me to blow up and to trace these on the board. So I'm gonna show you the finished product of this right now, which is
in the thumbnail piece. I mean, one of the thumbnail pieces that you showed us, that's the one with the blue ink, correct?
Yeah, blue line
blue
pencil,
ink,
yeah.
and then you drew over it. Okay.
Yeah, and so yeah, thumbnails are more smaller, like this size. Well, this size like 3x5. The developed sketch like 6x9, and then the final pencil rather is this right here. So make it this other way. You see that here?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the finished pencil of the so I have, so I'll trace it in blue line pencil. It's very old school. On the board, on the actual board, not a tablet. And I'll go back on the blue line. So the purpose of the blue line is just to get all the mistakes out of the way, to sketch it loosely and to put it on the board, and then to have the pencil, I'm applying the pencil tightly on the board, so it's like almost like it's inked. So when I do scan it, I'll make the pencils darker and add blacks where the X's are. You'll see where the X's are is the black areas over here.
So and when you say on the board, you're saying that when you're actually, you're actually hand drawing, like old school. Yeah. I got my my 11 by 17.
Exactly. Yeah, because I've
you have one near you. If you don't, it's okay.
No,
I
do.
But so yes, okay. So yeah. So you're not drawing on a Wacom.
So right here.
Is that the same piece? Oh, that's one of the pieces. Okay.
Yeah. So this is the get in the screen there. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the piece from before.
Yeah. So, and right next to me, I have a project I'm working on, which is in the develop sketch stage. So I'm not saying what this project is, okay. But so yeah, that's the purpose of the blue line was to avoid so you couldn't see it when the pencils were photocopied. So so all you would see were the pencil lines, and then the inker would ink just when you reproduced it. So when it was reproduced, inked, and colored, you wouldn't see the blue line stuff in the finished product or the published product. But it all comes up when you scan it on the computer. But I just make sure I just manipulate levels, throw it in the grayscale, and get rid of what blue lines are in there through that process. And anything that's left over, I just erase with the eraser tool on the page. And one more thing I want to show you is another thing about Walt. This is
that's beautiful.
This is the page that we worked on for Noir's New Black. And this is giant rope.
Recently, right?
Was that? Yeah, it came out recently. It came out just in February. It's a 6-page story written by Brandon Thomas, drawn by myself, and colored by Walt Barner Masanza, a brother from he's from Mozambique.
He's from Zimbabwe.
He's from Zimbabwe, yeah, Zimbabwe. I think he's currently residing in South Africa. And so he colored this, and he colored Ajala for us, and now he's colored. Anytime I get a job, I refer him, and so he's awesome. He's colored a few of my projects, and this is one of them where he colored, which features a female protagonist, and six-page stories. I'm not gonna tell much of the story. I'm not gonna tell any of the story because it's 6 pages long, but it's a story that Brandon and I want to explore further. So hopefully we can do that. But that's part of the process. Thumbnails, develop sketches, finish pencil, and then I may darken the pencil line so it won't have to be inked. And that's pretty much my process.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing, all of you. No actually, amazing work. So we're winding down just a little bit, and we did get one question, and anyone in the audience feel free to send us more questions, but we got a pretty detailed question. I got sent directly to me in the chat, so I'm gonna pose that to y'all. But before we do that, tell folks where they can find you online, and what your next projects are. Elias, let's start with you. Well, now we're getting questions.
Then I can send the link. And you will share them, but you can find me on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. Are you hearing me?
Yeah,
Yes.
I hear you. Mm-mm.
Oh, she froze. Okay. She'll come back to us. Sumto?
Yeah. You can find us on vortex247.com. It's a subscription platform to read the best of African comic books across the continent. We would be honored to have comic books from Steve Harris, Ajala, the platform. I've followed your art for so long. I'm in love with your art, and
Oh,
seeing
thank you.
that just reminds me all over again.
Thank you.
I think we definitely even had a few conversations over Facebook, probably.
I think so. Yeah, I think.
Yes, definitely. You can find us there. It's the platform speaks for itself. So once you get there, you just have to read comic books, and that's all. That's the business that we're in. Having people to read these comic books. If you want to follow us on Instagram, is at VX Comics across everything. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, VX Comics, one word, VX COMIC S Comics. We're very excited to have new people join our community and subscribe. It's just $3 per month. That's the price of a box of juice. You could read you could read comic books from across the continent, comic books in the diaspora. We're excited. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you all.
Steve?
Oh yeah, you reach me in social media. Just type in my name and Stephen Harris @Stephen Harris on my Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Sometimes I'll pop in on LinkedIn, but that's rare. And my website is nstephenworks.com. I'll put it in the chat, all that stuff. And the current projects I'm working on now, I just showed you Indigo Clan. I'm working on that right now, and a 10-pager for another person. And I'll have my DC writing debut coming out in May on my birthday.
Get out of here.
Yeah. I'm represent 10 pages represent. And it's about a story that happened to me in '92 when I was a young person trying to fight the power. So that's coming out in May. 10-page story with me and some friends trying to make a difference in the world.
Okay, awesome. And me, I'm Regine. I'm Regine Elsewhere. You can find me at lockitdown.com. That's LOCKETT down.com. You can also find me and the other members of Women in Comics at womenincomicscollective.org. And we're all over the social medias and stuff. And I have some stories that came out with DC a couple of months back. And I have some other stuff coming out that I can't talk about, but I can't wait to talk about it. And we also have an anthology that we're doing over at Wink, and we are taking submissions, and it is paid. You will get paid for writing a short story or editorial comic or even some poems. So feel free to go over and check out the submission guidelines. So we do have a question. Okay, this is from Kenji. What are the differences between American superheroes and African superheroes? Not just Black heroes, but in terms of region. Are there different principles that African audiences are looking for? And Kenji asked a pretty, that's opening a question, but it's a big question. But we have a couple of minutes where we can answer it. Anybody want to jump in? Any thoughts? Sumto? That's why you take yourself off mute. So. We can all answer it
it's
together.
an interesting question. I think how do Black American and African comic book artists cross the bridge and work more together? I think it's already happening, and I think it's been happening for a long time. I think a lot of just like Stephen Harris, his colorist is Zimbabwe. You know, I've worked with brother Sir Akinsheye Brown for years. You know, working on his comic book Sankofa Man, which was a great honor. You know, I think it's already happening. I think it could, yes, there's room for it to happen more, but I think platforms like this is what inspires it to continue happening, you know. So big shout out to Towson 4. I think also a collective place where you can read from both worlds is also a great way to discover artists in both sides of the pool, and also digest their content and even see ways that you can mash them together. So sign up on Vortex 247.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of Pan-Africanism, and when Walt came to us, Robert found Walt, and when he first did the first issue of Jolly, it was amazing, and I made it my business to make sure I was keeping in touch with him, and anything that came down the pike, which I have done, I shoot to him because he's great. He's a great color, a great professional, and those are some ways that I don't know much about the comic book buying public on the continent, but as far as professionals, I mean, there's Walt, there's Roy Akupe who does his book, Malika, I'm not sure. Malika, right? And so whenever possible, whenever we can, we support people doing their things, collaborate with people doing their things, just to be aware of who we are and each other. Because, like I said, I'm one of my philosophies is Pan-Africanism, and working together across the continent, across the diaspora is what I want to do. So that's how I take it. But yeah, working with professionals who are doing what we do is part of the key to that, I think.
Okay. And Leon, she's having some she has bad connection, but she sent me some things that she's currently doing. So she's created a festival. Let me make this bigger so I can see it. Okay, she created a festival where she invites various artists and gives room to many people. And she's had unknown and as well as well-known artists at this festival. The last was Charlie Adlard, the comic artist behind the Walking Dead phenomenon. And she's inviting artists no matter their background or language, and would be honored to have more from the diaspora.
Nice.
From the US, Europe, Asia, to connect and exchange experiences.
Nice.
Okay. Do you have any more questions? I think we got a lot of comments. Oh, also she says from African storytelling to more. But we received a lot of thank yous. People are really happy to meet us and meet the panelists and see everything that you're doing. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I think that's it. Thank you to everyone who came and attended the panel. Thank you so much to our panelists and Stephen Harris, Somto, Elions. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us. And it was my pleasure to be here with you. So thank you.
Thank you for having us, Regina, and Towson University.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Thompson. Thank you, Ekbach, as well.
Great seeing you, Somto, and nice meeting you, Elions.
Well, thank you all.
Nice meeting you all. Thank you very much.
This has been a wonderful event, and we really appreciate the time that you all put into it. And we know it was kind of hard and awkward. Some of you, it's nighttime, so we definitely appreciate that. And it's been kind of a long draining day, I can imagine, for those who've been with us throughout the whole time. But we really appreciate it. Kirsten, did you have any last comments that you wanted to make? And then I'll kind of close this all out.
I just want to say thank you to everyone for attending. Thank you for signing up. I hope you got a lot of great tips, learned some new things, and just enjoyed yourself. The conversation was absolutely great. We had a lot of preparation to get here, and I just want to say thank you to all of the panelists and participants, because it definitely showed.
This has really been a really wonderful event, and I need to highlight the effort that Kirsten put into this. When we given the COVID, all this stuff is more complicated, and she said she wanted to do it, and I said, well, you can do it. I got a million things to do, and she really took control and organized this and reached out and did everything necessary to make this happen. So I'm very proud of her. And what we were able to accomplish. We recorded this event, so we're going to have it, edited and posted on our website. So there will be increasing numbers of folks who will see what you guys talked about and really have access to this really deep and insightful conversation. We also will have links to all of your websites ongoing. So hopefully, that will elicit more interest in the work that you guys are doing. And again, we're going to keep doing this event into the future. Maybe next year we'll be in person and as well as some remote, because I love the idea of being able to access you folks from around the world to participate. So I'm hoping that you guys will come back and join us again. This has been a great conversation and a wonderful contribution to our university and our whole and our exploration of people of African descent all around the world and culture and ideas. So I appreciate your time and your efforts. With that, thank you all. A special thank you goes out to all the folks at ECBAC, especially Brother Kinsey, for all the hard work and the vision and doing the heavy lifting of bringing you all together and tapping your network. So we appreciate that. Thank you, and until next year. Great, thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
All right, good night.